Hello, everybody.
Hey, hey.
Ugh, we're back. We said we would do it yesterday, and now we're here. Reading the rest of the fucking weekly bounties for the end of the year.
We finally did a chat. We managed to hold him at gunpoint long enough.
After this stream, I disappear into the fucking brush. You'll never find me
Yeah.
again. I'm gonna go
The
fucking
ops will not
postal.
find him.
Have you heard of Off the Grid? That's where I'm going. But yeah, no, we got through about half of the submissions on the stream yesterday, and we're gonna be getting through the other half today. So, for everybody who is unaware, that is going to include the following chapter ones of these fics: Peachy Promises by Ace, Severed Connections by Dins, Raptor Love by Magic Man, Our Finest Hour, and All That's Left by Ken, as well as Born to Inherit the Stars and Cylinder Gap by Iron Will.
Smash.
Smiles over there. He's gonna be reading his own fic. You guys excited for
Yeah.
that? I'm gonna read the really small one that he like last minute submitted, but that's all good. So that'll be a good one. That'll be a good one. Because I don't know how long this is gonna run, and because I'm on a little bit of a timer tonight, believe it or not, we are gonna go ahead and kick her off early here. Not gonna fucking piss about. If there's a little bit of time and it makes sense to at the end, we'll talk a little bit, but otherwise, we're just gonna go ahead and roll straight the fuck into it. So,
Yep.
let me get it up on screen here. There we go. So, like I said, we're gonna be starting off tonight with Peachy Promises Chapter 1. And the message that Ace attached to this, I don't believe is the same as the summary. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the message right out. A lot of people know about Naomi and what she did, but as most of us realized, she had reasons for doing so, flawed as they may be, given the bonus chapters to her story. While it's 100% for the Naomi heads, they're plentiful, and while it is, by all intents and purposes, a Naomi x Anon fic, I do want to at least somewhat extrapolate on her. Decided to do something with that idea. Plus, Nerd Naomi. Initially, at least. And again, dorks being dorks, it's not all analytical. I can do fluff. Maybe. Chapters might come out slow, though. I have a very nice artist friend who wishes to attempt to make art for every chapter, and we both agree it's best to drop them when they're finished. And then there's a follow-up here that says, to give an idea of what I mean, the scenario is a Naomi who hadn't received that letter, and an Anon who came at the start of his senior year rather than smack dab in the middle. Basically, what if Naomi was her old self, based on what I can infer, before her idealism of perfection came to be? So that's a little bit of a primer for what we're getting into here. So, we're going to go ahead and start her off here. Peachy Promises by Ace. Anon, a self-proclaimed loner, manages to convince his parents much sooner in his high school career that rock bottom is no longer for him anymore, and starts the beginning of his senior year at Volcano High. Naomi, a nerdy, preppy, albeit self-conscious star student, has just been voted as class president due to a technicality and is worried about the expectations she'll have to keep with such a role. Will two people unsure of themselves collide? Do they stumble into an even bigger hole they dug themselves into? Or do they guide one another to their answer? And what happens if that answer is each other? Notes. Hello again. I had this idea on a whim, and it interested me so much that I just had to act on it. And then, eventually, I figured out I wanted to make a full-fledged story. The glory of human experience. Plus, Naomi's cute. I said it. I felt like there is some real potential with Anon X Naomi. I just had to tweak a few things, but that's neither here nor there. Expect this one to be pretty sweet, and honed in on just the two of them for the most part. Anyway, I hope you enjoy Peachy Promises. And then here's the cover art for it. So, Chapter 1. Nerdy Prudes. Running. That's all I was doing in that moment. Forget the conduct marks, forget the hit to my grade, I'm not going back. I can't take it anymore. I can't. Even with how unfit I am, I ran all the way home. School had barely started that morning, and yet I immediately wanted to go back. Mom tried to reason, but I wasn't gonna listen. I wasn't budging. Dad tried to force me. So much that did. Next words that left his mouth were scathing, dripping with a real lethality. The content of those words. My eyes finally opened up, half-lidded. The soft droning noise emanating from my phone slowly starting to raise in pitch and volume the longer I neglected the source. Even as it got deafening, I let it continue to dig my head in for whatever reason I could come up with. Maybe to wake up faster or to give myself further incentive to turn it off. In reality, I knew the answer. I'm just lazy. That's exactly why I set it an hour before I had to leave for school. Because if I set it on time, I'd waste every last second I had to just stay in bed like as long as possible, risking running late. I remember Mom telling me how I should take this seriously, that I need to look past everything that happened the year prior. How she thinks I'll manage that? No idea. She saw firsthand on what I was dealing with and what it did to me, and all of a sudden I'm just supposed to forget it all? Fat fucking chance. There's a part of me that makes me feel as though I should be glad, and to an extent, I am. I'm not there anymore, and I'll never have to go back. But when I made that plea, I had so many different things in mind. I knew another school in the area was probably in the know of what I had done, and those were immediately crossed out of my mind. But maybe I could have been homeschooled. Dad was adamant in the military. I could have just sucked it up. It's not my first option, but I'd rather have something than be a bum on the streets with nothing to my name. Though, that only changed so much. I already got nothing to me. Even less than that now, with what I did, which can be attributed to character assassination. But now, here I am. In an apartment Dad pitched in to pay the rent only for as long as the school year lasts, in the middle of dino territory. As if being placed miles away from home wasn't bad enough. Only solace I have is my shoddy computer and some of my older console video. Finally decided the alarm had enough life to it, and immediately went to turn it off. Decided to read the date built into my phone in some faux hope that I was dreaming. That summer would last forever, so I didn't have to prepare or do anything. Just video and shit posting. What I've always been meant for. September 4th, 2:01 2019 BC. After Jesus. Still disappointed even though I knew it was today. Why the hell would I have an alarm then? Again, I just had baseless hope that I didn't have to get up and enter uncharted waters, in which I probably have to deal with a completely different subject of antagonism. I decided to put together a really shitty bait post to give myself an extra boost to get up. Eventually, I just decided to cobble up some old drama about dino on dino violence. It isn't enough they wanted to hurt us. Keck. I shoved my phone into my pocket, rubbing my temples, simultaneously throwing my legs to the side of my bed and immediately standing, getting a bit dizzy from doing all that simultaneously, grasping onto my desk to stabilize myself before it fell onto my bed. To be expected. I have the build of a skeleton while eating as healthily as a Victorian child. Sighing, I take the hand that is still resting on the side of my face, and the other propping me up to rub my eyes fervently. Blue and red dots blinding me once I finish the assault and take the chance to open them again. For the final act, I simply run my hands across my face, starting from my forehead and ending near my bottom lip, shaking my head to finally drive out all that morning exhaustion out of me. If I have to deal with the interaction and exhaustion later, might as well rid myself out of anything else that'll have me utterly withered by the time I come back home. Quickly, I power walk over to the restroom to get freshened up. Not that I really care about how I look, I just don't want to stand out. Who the fuck am I kidding? I'm probably the only human here in that meteor dodger infested school. That Mom tried to convince me that it might be a nice change of pace for you. Dude, that's what she meant. I sure as shit didn't. Regardless, least I can do is basic hygienics, and the mirror didn't show me anything I haven't seen before. After washing my face with ice cold water, brushing my teeth with shitty toothpaste, that'll probably have the same effect as just not opening my mouth ever, and putting on some off-brand deo that'll last 30 minutes, I slap on my dirty sneakers and patchy jacket. Typically, first days don't need anything. Either way, there's nearly a 0% chance I'm ever using any of the supplies Mom stuffed in my bag. Fuck it. Might need to jot down a password, or something that I might exploit later if I manage to catch wind of anything I would maybe use to my benefit. I shuffle around to shake it. Backpack? Check. Run my hand over my head. Loser? Check. Good to go. Exiting the apartment, I shuffle around my pocket for the keys I'd nearly forgotten about and lock the door behind me, walking down the short steps leading up to it afterward, starting the decently long trek over to school. My new school. As I sluggishly dragged my feet all along the way, midway through I took note of all the flora in the new environment I found myself in. A coastal region. Dad gave it a big whoop, and a small part of me did have a natural intrigue, but now that I've been here for a few weeks, the only thing notable about it is how fucking gross it feels all day. I'd be lucky to just feel hot. More often than not, it's stuffy as all hell, and I feel like I'm boiling in a fucking sauna, and the air feels thick and sometimes smells of salt water. It's also my first time walking to school, Mom typically being the one to pick me up and drop me off. It sucks. The only plus to this part of the world is that when it hits night, it actually gets a bit cold. I've always loved the cold. Being hot is miserable, while when it's cold, I know I can wrap up and try to be less miserable. You can only get so naked, and there's no way in hell I'm taking off this jacket, even if it's staying to high hell. I only know this because I had to make a few emergency runs for food late a week or two ago. Considering that my one and only warning to never leave this apartment at night, I got chased by some homeless dude around the block. If that's what adrenaline feels like, it's like nothing like what Slash Trash made it out to be. Rather than feeling like I was king shit of fuck mountain, I felt like vomiting all over my already dingy carpet whenever I managed to slam into my house. Already, the idea of moving here in general sucked. But learning that I was moved to the ass-crack part of town was just the maraschino cherry on top of my growing shit cake. Forget all of that. It's muggy as all hell. Outside of the residence, it's really this bad, but fuck is it foggy. Like I just had entered Silent Dill or downloaded some shitty wad. Before I knew it, though, the fog manages to air out as I cautiously continue along the sidewalk, hearing a cacophony of voices in the distance, all growing louder and louder. My phone buzzed, and I realized I was kind of out of it. Sure, I was looking at the directions, but other than that, I was mindlessly following the red trail the map was giving me, and I hadn't figured out that I was only a few minutes away. Speaking of which, I was nearly half an hour early. Just fucking peachy. So much for trying to leave my dingy apartment early. Guess there's no winning in that regard. Choices are to rot in bed, or to try and get the day over with as soon as possible. Pick your poison, and both seem equally appealing. A minute or two later, eventually, there I was, in front of the 3 fucking flights of stairs, condensed entirely with colorful misfits varying in size, shape, and make. Seriously, some of these meteor dodgers could be the school's mascot. Or cartoon character. The kind you see in sugar-packed cereal boxes or other miscellaneous items at the grocery store. And as I suspected, All eyes are on me, going steadily up and down with each step I took, as if I was wearing a Halloween costume in the middle of spring. Just like my junior year. Part of me found humor in that. Yeah, I'm the outlier in the sea of Crayola, horns, feathers, and scales. Again, I knew it. No better than assholes back in rock bottom. Not even giving me the light of day to maybe show that I'm beyond what they see. It's not like I wanted to anyway. Plan here is simple. Blend out. Become a silhouette in the crowd. Become a background character with one act. And I had already served my play. Thinking and actually witnessing all the stares among the faint drone of chatter just made me more irritated. And then, eventually, I heard it. Or rather, what I could imagine them saying. Is that a human? Where's his spear? Don't they all have one stored away? Skinny. Fucking hell. Move from one shithole down to another. I can't ever catch a damn break. Why can't I just be left alone? Decided I couldn't handle being out here. Still getting those judging stares and comments left and right. Quickly, I speed walked to the other side of the school, praying all the while to whatever fucked up god that wants to listen to me that there was an alternative entrance. After a few more minutes of circling, my ticket was seen, and it was much more golden than I could have imagined. Not only was there a side entrance, but this side of the school was also nearly vacant. A few sparse groups seen here and there, but nothing like the swaths of rainbow out front. I can hunker down here. Finding a nearby bench, I take my seat and whip out my phone again after having put it away earlier. Me, Mom, and Dad talked to Principal Spears as a part of the registration. I wanted nothing to do with it, but I was forced to by my parents and partially Spears, since he personally wanted to talk to me. I didn't say much anyway, so it was whatever. Video conferences are fucking stupid. But it beat meeting him in person on a one-on-one. Plus, it meant I got the schedule with me on my phone. One shitty interaction versus having several. I'll take what little wins I can get. Thankfully, nothing changed about the spot I was situated at. The handful of other walking paintbrushes entered the side of the school, gawking at me all the same, but nothing else beyond that. Eventually, after scrolling endlessly through post after post to soothe the nerves further, I heard the initial bell ring that told all of us to start heading to our respective classes. Quickly, I pick up my bag and head to my first class. Entering, I was greeted with the school's presentation on the inside. Besides the Dodgers, the place seemed pretty basic. Besides some extra flora growing along the walls, the shine they reflected telling me they were probably artificial. Other than that, same walls, same stereotypical decor, everything. As if I needed an extra slap in the face that what I thought was going to happen was happening right before my eyes. All that changed was that I get a clean slate. The only difference about that is I'm a weirdo by default rather than being outed as one. I'm still judged and insulted all the same, probably even more so now considering the prejudice that probably exists in a town comprised of mostly dinos. Keeping my head down, I stare at the schedule while taking a glance at the labels that are indented nearby this several doors I walked past, showcasing what class the door belonged to. First headache up. English. It took a bit of aimless walking since these sectors are labeled so awkwardly, but I eventually found my way. Mr. Suki. Strangely, the name sounded just a bit familiar. I wasn't sure exactly what, though. A deja vu moment, to be certain. Walking in, I'm greeted by... Is that a fucking bamboo sword? And a kimono? Who the hell is this guy? Given by his notable wrinkles located near his maw, I can assume he's the teacher. It doesn't answer why he's here appropriating all over the place. Not like I care that I even believe that is a thing in the first place. I just question what brings a man to dress like this. I got away from Mr. Suki as I look out at the rest of the class. Before I could even begin to witness any of their stares, I immediately take a seat near the front, continuing to hear the soft droning of conversations all the while. If I shirked away fast enough, I could probably mask myself pretty well, so long as I make sure that sitting here not a big deal. And so far, I think I've accomplished that goal. A few more minutes passed, and the tardy bell dinged the same tune it did beforehand. With it fading, the teachers began to speak. Hero Karasu. What the fuck? I was immediately bombarded with the asinine emphatics this man was lobbing at class. Everyone seemed either unbothered or just indifferent, killing my vibe of utter bewilderment. Seriously, is this some sort of joke? What is he saying? Whatever it is, I hope it isn't important. And just as that thought crossed my mind, I witnessed him come in front of my desk and bow subtly, quietly speaking near my face. Anon-kun, please introduce yourself. You are a new student this year. Huh? He motions with his hand to the front of the class, pointing towards the whiteboard. Oh. Remind me to never make the claim that I'm ever shit out of luck, because I never had any to begin with. Might as well just wing it and bullshit my way through. It's not like I have a novel to recite when referring to myself. Standing, I made my way over to Mr. Suki as Mr. Suki stepped out of the way. My legs suddenly felt soft, uneasy, as if I was walking on stilts that were crafted with jelly. Destination made, I turn around to the rest of the class, and I immediately feel like toppling over. Exactly where I was before, their eyes seething with contempt, judgment, and disdain. The cough made by someone in the back snapped me back to reality. And in reality, nobody gave me even the time of day. Everyone seated was fiddling with their hands, whispering to one another, or already asleep. Despite all of that, my chest felt tighter than it ever had, and I had to clear my throat subtly before speaking. My name is Anon. I don't have any hobbies. Some of them have their attention dragged from whatever they were doing to stare at me, digging into me, like each and every one of them had knives slowly growing more and more serrated. Even thinking back to the hobbies I did have to make sure I didn't blurt them out was enough to make me remember. I think of what else to say, if anything at all. Their questioning stares all asking me the same inquiry that I was not answering. Where the hell did you come from? The sweat buildup I felt in my pits and legs added onto the drive to just sit back down, saying nothing more. Luckily, the longer I stayed quiet, the more they seemed disinterested, as their heads moved all in different directions in waves, either back down to their lap where they tried to sneakily hide their phone, putting their heads back onto their desks, or talking with one another. I nearly take the chance to get my bearings to just sit back down regardless of what the teacher had to say. Until I looked far off in the back. I saw eyes that didn't show any kind of animosity or questioning. If anything, they just stared attentively, with no discernible emotion other than curiosity. A girl, who dressed nothing like anybody else here. Neat white button-up, round pink glasses, pink bow tie, and a gray skirt. While not exactly any different color-wise, the orangey peach contrasted the white on her scales. She stood out in the weirdest way possible. Like she was dressed for a job interview or some other fancy event, rather than the place we were currently. School. Suddenly, my legs didn't feel as weak anymore, and my throat felt less clogged with the imaginary pressure I made myself. A few moments after, her eyes shift side to side before coming back to meet mine, before abruptly picking up her notebook she had neatly arranged on her desk and began to write. It was then I realized I was staring like a spurg. I quickly bring my eyes to the floor. With little flair, I awkwardly lift my hand towards Mr. Suki. Is that all, Lennon-kun? I nod. Then you may have a shito. With absolutely no objection, I take my seat and immediately have my head hit the desk. That alone was enough to have me utterly exhausted. Seeing everyone en masse made my stomach churn a bit. As Mr. Suki went on about class and its subject matter, I realized I'm probably gonna have to do that for every single class. Fuck my life. Wasn't sure how much time had passed, but I think I'm at the end stretch of this class. Thank God. Mr. Suki's voice got more and more incomprehensible as time went on. I couldn't even sleep or make anything to pass the time. All I could do was just mindlessly stare at the board, acting as if I heard anything of what was just said. Suddenly, a jolt shot through my entire body as I heard a scream from down the hall, but it felt as though it was right outside the door.
Naomi Patel! In my office! Thank you!
I think my balls entered my throat. Though the emphatics were completely different, and he was shouting with every nano-angstrom of his larynx, I recognized that grisly that still occupied the voice that I've heard before. Principal Spears. Looking around, everyone either looked a bit shaken or seemed indifferent. I'm assuming that's normal. Wonderful. Several clacks and subtle rustling spawned behind me as I turned. It was that girl. She seemed a bit rattled as well, holding all her supplies in her arms with papers and folders scrambled around in them, sticking out in every which way. She quickly scooted out of her desk and speed-walked out the door, adjusting her glasses with her free hand. I'd wonder what that was all about, but I can't be bothered. Too busy watching the clock tick each second as I continue to pray class ends soon. I'm really losing my edge here. Class after class, headache after headache from the torturous grind of having to repeat how disinteresting I am. Finally made it to the last class of the day. And, of course, it's math. I'm not bad at it. At least I don't think so. But regardless, this shit gets tedious real fast. All it takes solace in is the fact that Mr. Karl Dusky is a human. Nice pat on the back after a day's worth of bullshit. Maybe he deals with the same stuff I will. Additionally, the first couple of days of the school year just go through the syllabus and honorifics, stuff I really don't worry or care about. Most of the stuff on the syllabus are things you should infer already with some inklings of information that you might need in a really niche hypothetical. Lunch was a pain to skip. Not willingly. Only have so much money that Dad slid over for emergencies. Some of those costs stabbed me straight in the heart. And my wallet. I figured I can skip lunch and eat an extra ramen cup at home. Not like I ate much more than that normally anyway. Probably why I ship bricks as consistently as I do. As I'm going through my tried and true ritual of blankly staring at the front to convince everyone and maybe even myself that I'm paying attention, I hear heavy footfalls outside the door. Eventually, they halt.
Every senior in the building, please report to the auditorium in an orderly fashion, immediately. Thank you.
Christ. I need to invest in something that'll spare me from the tinnitus I'll develop the second I turn 20. How this guy manages that kind of volume by himself is a feat, and one I do not want to be subjected to for a whole year. I don't really have a choice in that regard, though. A few other people in class stand, as do I. I could skip, but might need to know whatever it is that's going on over there. Miss an event date that I will skip in the future. Plus, I have a premonition that if I do, I could be found. If he managed to find out... Didn't even want to imagine. Wasn't necessarily sure where the auditorium was, but following the crowd that spilled into the halls was easy enough. And eventually, I saw 2 double doors in the distance that everyone was disappearing into. The crowd wasn't that big, so I'm assuming there'll only be so many of us. Seniors are typically the lowest count in the school. As I get closer and closer to the doors, a hand stops me in place as it's softly placed on my shoulder. Even through the fabric, I can feel the coarseness of whoever this hand belonged to.
Hello, Anon.
A rather sophisticated and recognizable voice said behind me. Turning, my shoulders released, and I met with a mammoth of a man. That video conference did not do him justice. This guy huffs jet fuel for breakfast and drinks protein for dinner. Pathetically, I sputtered, "Hello, Spears?" He smiled a bit before continuing.
Last year, and officially a senior. I won't bother you with what we have already discussed, but you're welcomed here. I believe you can do great things if you shut your mind to it, Mr. Mouse.
Nodding, I stay silent. Spears continues.
I did want to ask you, what do you think of our school so far?
Contemplating my answer, I decide to just be vague. To be honest, I'm too tired to give a proper response, and if I just praise it vaguely, I can probably get away with it. It's okay. The classes are fine, and I feel okay being here. By the way, is there anything happening in there I should be concerned about? One of his eyebrows raises as if questioning the validity of what I said, but it returns back to its natural spot after a few moments, replying with a smile once more.
This is just a revitalizing speech for you seniors. Puts things into perspective, I say. Now I won't hold you any further. Go on ahead and take your seat.
Following his request, I quickly make my way inside after nodding one last time. Wasn't sure what to expect, but it definitely fit what I thought it would look like, at least when you consider the simplicity of the entire school. A few rows of seats, which elevated a few inches above the one before it, and a stage, with a nice wooden podium situated with stand microphone. Perfect for talking ears off about whatever needed to be talked about. Today was evidently not anything important if Spears' word is to be taken seriously. A pep talk for God knows how long is not what I want nor need. Most of the seats are untaken, and everyone either sat with a few seats between them, or someone else, or with their friends. I'll take this one chance I'll probably ever get to stay in my own little area like a good handful of people here. I pick a spot situated a row or two from the front. A paradoxical situation. It's so up front that you're the immediate audience that nobody sits here. Perfect. The seats are rather cushiony, but feel a little soggy. Ugh, gross. I'll make sure to put these in the wash when I get back. There's a subtle murmur in the audience. Nothing too loud, and it's mostly just whispers, disregarding that girlish group in the back talking loud enough that even I could hear them. Not that it was anything of substance either. Some fashion talk or whatever. A decent amount of time passes as I'm aimlessly taking the finer details of the auditorium, before the lights surrounding us noticeably grew more dim and the lights on stage brighter. The murmurs got much quieter. Spears enters stage right and immediately begins to talk, in a loud but calm manner.
Hello, students. As I'm sure you're very much aware, this is your last year. All of you know what to expect, what I expect to see. Maturity and responsibility. Most importantly, however, is I want you all to reflect and project on how you got here, how you've changed, and how you grow, or how you grew.
He straightened out his tie and looked to the left of the stage. Smiling, he nodded before turning back to us.
Now, please bring your attention to class president and current valedictorian, Naomi Patel.
Not long after, I hear faint steps in front of me as I see Spears walk off stage. Looking up, I saw her. That girl from earlier. Naomi, was it? As she was on the stage, walking towards the podium, with a neat stack of papers folded in her arms. Once she made it to the podium, she unfurled them, the microphone picking up every little crease being undone. She seemed nervous. I mean, I don't expect everyone to have steel nerves, but for being a class president, you'd think she'd be more ironclad. Being this close, I can see everything. She's glistening a bit, and I noticed a few beads of sweat going down her neck as I swore I saw her shoulders shudder a bit. After a few long moments of silence, she finally opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out at first except the feedback from the microphone, giving all of us a short, deafening, high-toned noise. I seriously need to invest in ear protection. Even those shitty plastic earplugs would work better than being blasted in the eardrums for the umpteenth time. After sitting up from my lurch due to the assault to my ears, I looked back up to see her stunned and her eyes darting across the crowd. Just as quickly, though, she returns to the state she was at before, albeit silent once again. Like clockwork, she opens her mouth once more, and this time there's the smallest croak that escaped her. She immediately clicked her mouth shut. And then I heard a few snickers here and there as I started to smile myself. They weren't loud or anything, but loud enough to hear some from the middle row since it was so quiet. But as soon as I heard that snicker and looked back to the front after taking a glance at where it was coming from, tears. Silent with nearly nothing said. Tears were being produced as she was clutching the papers she held with the real strength behind it. The only sign she was even alive were her green eyes that subtly trembled in place. Those snickers grew just a bit louder. Is that really all it took? I felt that killer instinct somewhere, and sure enough, I see Spears peeking over the curtain on the right side of the stage, just staring. Even then, something felt wrong. Incorrect. An incredibly small part of me feeling twisted. In a way, the smile on my face slowly melting away as she continued to stand there, silently letting tears fall. Before I knew it, she briskly walked off stage to where Spears was. A faint murmur fell upon the audience again after a few minutes passed with no action on stage. Spears suddenly stomped over onto stage and pointed towards a few of the spots that I heard the snickering from. Sternly, he spoke. You, and you three, to my office, now. The rest of you are dismissed. I apologize for any inconvenience. Have a wonderful rest of your day. He returned behind the curtains. What the fuck just happened? Did she even say anything? Were a few dispersed laughs enough to make her clog up? Shaking my head, I joined the rest of the crowd piling out into the aisles that led to the seats, walking out the door, and evidently, home. I whip out my nearly dead phone to see it's clocking around 4 in the afternoon. Great. I'll just hell walk back home. As expected, the walk back was hell. The sun is unforgiving in its never-ending rage for humanity, and I have to wait several more months for this place to get to manageable temperatures, and an extra one to get that cold I actually enjoy. Entering my block, I pick up the pace and quickly make it towards my apartment, walking up this few steps two at a time. Quickly dart inside and lock the door behind me. It isn't that late, but I don't run risks after 3. Fuckers get jumpy around that time. I waste no time kicking off my shoes and immediately slumping into my bed, rolling up in a blanket, mentally exhausted. Virtually nothing happened, and that's what makes me more worried for what's to come. In one final attempt to soothe my nerves, I come back to one of the posts I made this morning. 4:00 forward. Mission successful. With more reprieve than ever before, I set my phone down after checking the time. 6 o'clock. I can afford to sleep now. Closing my eyes, all the mundane events of the day made it easier to just knock out faster to enter tomorrow quicker. That was until I remembered the auditorium. More specifically, what didn't happen. I assumed she had a whole speech planned for us, but just locked up. I would have brushed all that aside if it weren't for the fact that nearly nothing happened to her. Again, you'd expect the class president to have some backbone. And yet, one snicker was enough to cause her to shatter, and she didn't so much as make a peep. I want you all to reflect and project. Yeah. I already reflect enough, and projecting is what I do best. Puts me away faster than anything else. If all those icebreakers are something to speak about, then I'm already doing a great job. Nobody cares. I wouldn't want it any other way, because I don't either. I just want to stay alone and not try. And so far, I've done just that. Notes. Cover art by Kev on Twitter. Do check them out. Extremely talented and skilled individual. Very true. We love Kev. Naomi art done by Zavik. You can find them over on Twitter under the same handle. Do also go check them out. Zavik does also cool shit. I hope you all enjoyed as much as I did. Expect a whole lot more. As always, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Very good. Very good, Ace. Oh. I forgot how much of a bitch doing Spears' voice is. Holy
really
shit.
gotta put some fucking bass in it.
You gotta put some gravel into it, too.
Yeah.
And then he just starts shouting out of nowhere, and I'm like, fuck, here we go. That was good, though. That was good.
Good stuff.
Hopefully Ace gets to hear that at some point, and then it sits at the Grinner table and points his big finger and says, "That's mine."
Yeah. All right, so I believe up next we have Severed Connection.
I believe that would be correct. Let me get that up on my end real quick. Yo. I forgot that I was going to put these up on screen as well, so give me just one sec while I pull up the rest of them.
Sure.
Motherfucker! Smoker,
no.
you whore!
Yeah, we got another last minute entry. Smash.
Fuck! No, it's cool. It's fine. I'm good.
We at the Fumers table.
The Fumers table?
Yeah.
Fumigation time.
Alright, let me get this up. So, Severed Connections, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. I've got it up on a stream now.
Alrighty.
Whenever you're ready.
Severed Connections by Magnesium Sprinkles. Summary. One last piece of advice seems to finally get through to Anon, just in time for him to act in order to prevent a disaster. But one rash action can't fix months of unresolved issues. In fact, it seems to only make them worse. Can Anon correct his mistakes and repair his relationship with all those around him? Does he even want to? Chapter 1. Shit! Fang's exclamation made me drop the snare drum I was holding. I see the devastation in her face. Following her eyes down, I see the source of her distress. Her guitar strings snap. Shit. Trish is beside her, bass in hand. She looks even more wrecked than Fang. Don't you have a spare? I asked Fang. At home? Not good. My mind starts flooding with ideas. Anything to solve this. There's gotta be some here. Read! Look around. We don't have time, Fang snaps at me. Okay, her suggestion's no good. What else? A spare guitar, maybe? I ask. We do not have the time, Fang says again, irritated. Come on, Fang, I'm trying to help. Work with me here. Look, me and Reed can. Anon, you're not helping! Fang's shout stops all of us. Just look at her. I can see the panic starting to set in her face. Look, Anon, we just need to focus right now. Just go outside so we can figure something out. Her words cut straight through me. What? Is she really kicking me out right now? Please, Anon? Reed is silent, awkwardly scratching his arm off to the side. I look the other way and catch a glimpse of a smirking Triceratops. I look back to Fang and try to formulate a response, but all I can manage is a small nod. Yeah, sure. I scuff my shoes against the floor as I walk, letting the sounds echo down the empty hallway. Fang hasn't snapped at me like that since. Shit, not since our first time together in science. I get she's on edge right now, but I was just trying to help. I'm just trying to support her like I've been told I should. But if she doesn't want me there, then fine. I won't get in the way. I push on the double doors leading back into the gym, music slamming into me, breaking my contemplative silence. God, Reed left this music playing way too loud. I swear I can feel the music vibrating its way through me. I weave my way around the edge of the dance floor, past the punch bowl for a quick refill, then settle for a quiet corner as far away from everyone as possible. The entire time I spot people eyeing me, then turning to their friends and snickering. Fucking assholes. Why'd I even bother coming to this shitty wad of a school? Could have stayed in rock bottom and gotten basically the same experience. Hell, I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Fang's concert. But even in that endeavor, I've been relegated to being as useful as a chocolate fire extinguisher. I resigned myself to leaning against the wall, doing my best to hide my face behind my cup of cheap sugar water. Enjoying yourself, Anon? I nearly choke on my fruit punch. Apparently, I was so focused on hiding I didn't notice the world's largest principal approaching. Principal Spears, you're chaperoning? I wouldn't ask any of the faculty to look after you lot, he says, giving me a small smile. Are you enjoying your prom, Anon? Could be worse, mumble. Where's your date? Thought I saw the two of you enter. Weren't you all getting ready in the music room? Spears asked, scanning the dance floor. We were. Something came up. She asked me to leave. Fang did? He looks back at me, the smile now gone. Yeah, I was just getting in the way. I say while averting his gaze, trying to focus on nothing but the solo cup in my hands. I see. He sounded disappointed. The two of us just stood there, Spears staring into the crowd while I was silently begging him to leave. After what felt like forever, Spears finally spoke. Seems there's something else on your mind, Anon. I can tell these things. Not really, it's just that I'm respecting her boundaries. Are you sure that's what's really going on here? I roll my eyes. Ugh, here we go. Back when I was in the game, I learned a thing or two about navigating my way through rough patches with partners. Sometimes, people have a tendency to shy away from awkward or difficult moments in a relationship. They think avoiding the issues can make it go away. I haven't been avoiding any issues. I've been letting Fang make her own decisions and being there to support her, haven't I? Out of the fear that they might lose what they have, many people will choose to act passively, thinking that if they do nothing, then they can do no wrong. My mind flits back to when Fang told me she'd apologized to Trish, that the band was back on, and how I could apologize to her at lunch. How I'd just gone along with it and with barely any pushback. But sometimes making no choice can be just as bad as making the wrong one. You won't get it right every time. No one does. We all make mistakes. What's important is that we act with the best of intention, take responsibility, and take it seriously. Relationships are a give and take sort of deal. So focused on my thoughts, I didn't realize I'd gone completely still, my eyes blankly staring at the cup in my hands. Got it, Anon? My throat had suddenly gone very dry listening to Spear's speech, making my next words come out in a rasp. Yeah. Take a minute and think about it. It's never too late to notice when you might have gone wrong in the past and change yourself for the better. What's important is that you want to put in the effort to make that change. All I can manage is a small nod. Good. I'll leave you to it then. I have a few last minute things to attend to before we can begin winding down for the night. His gargantuan hand pats my shoulder as he heads off, cutting his way through the crowd towards the stage. The music fades until all that's left is chatter. Spears takes to the stage with mic in hand for once. All right, everyone. Before we end tonight's prom, we have a couple of items to take care of. First thing is, I begin to tune the principal out. I can guess what's coming. Spears is going to announce the king and queen to the surprise of no one. Then Naomi will get to enjoy her carefully curated moment in the spotlight. $5 says she's got a speech prepared. My mind goes back to what Spears said. There's no way he knows everything about what's gone on between me and Fang since we got together. But it was eerie how much it felt like what he said related everything I've been dealing with between me, her, and Trish lately. Have I really been that passive? I swirled a punch in my cup around before chugging the last of it. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never been in a relationship before, and everything with Fang feels so complicated. Maybe he's right. I should just talk to Fang, and once this is all over, what's the worst that could happen? To close off this wonderful night, I've asked a student band to play a few bops for us. They've had their trials earlier this year, but I think everyone deserves a second chance. Please welcome Verm Drama. The audience's applause noticeably. What? Again? He was there last time, wasn't he? I'll just start recording. Screw him. Fang will show them how much they've all improved. I should be memorizing their faces now to make their dumbstruck expressions that much sweeter. I know Fang can pull this off. It's hard to really make out everything on stage from this far back, so I start pushing my way closer through the crowd. Fang will probably like it if I can snag some good pics of the band during their performance. Spears sets the mic back on the stands and walks off the stage as Trish enters through the curtains carrying her bass. Reed follows closely behind her, pushing the drum kit on a dolly. Lastly, Fang pushes her way through the curtain, also carrying a bass. Wait, no. They couldn't find a new string? They're just gonna repeat the first concert? What were they thinking? Reed starts unloading and setting up the drums while the other two plug in their basses. All the while, I'm left standing there dumbfounded at this latest revelation. No, this can't be real. How is this the solution Fang decided to go with? Literally anything would be better than this. Why wouldn't they just cancel the show? Shit, I can't let this happen, not again. I make a hard left, aiming for the edge of the mass of students surrounding me. From there, it should be a straight shot towards the curtains that head backstage. The hell should I even do? I could try reaching Fang and tell her to stop the concert, but she's already on stage. I'd end up making a scene in front of everyone. Besides, she didn't want to listen to me in the music room. I doubt much has changed in 10 minutes. Spears, I'm sure I'm bastardizing your advice right now, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I managed to escape the crowd and make a beeline for the curtains while keeping my head down. Don't want people seeing me right now. Hopefully they're all too focused on the stage. Slipping behind the curtain, I'm greeted by boxes of equipment. DJ booth Reed wheeled off stage in a tangled mess of wires going in every direction. Now what to do? The concert at Moe's got cut early because I messed with Reed's electrical work. That's a start, but it needs to be more drastic. I can't let this show start, let alone give them a chance to pick it up again later. My eyes follow the electrical wires running to the stage and trace them back to their source. They're all plugged into a single electrical outlet. Looks about right for Reed's work. I rush over, desperate for some inspiration. As I kneel by the electrical spaghetti, I can Hear faint notes drifting my way from the stage as Trish starts to pluck away at her bass. Fuck, I've probably got seconds to spare at best. Thank God the school seems to label all their equipment. See, stage lights, no. Stage string lights, still no. Amplifier, yes, perfect. I start yanking out every plug with either an amp or speaker label with one hand, while my other reaches into my trouser pocket to retrieve my pocket knife. I don't remember why I thought it was necessary to bring it on prom night of all places, but right now I'm not complaining. Start severing the plugs from each of the unplugged cables. I manage to get through two, and I'm ready to slice the final one when I hear it. What the fuck are you doing? That shrill voice seemed to instantly turn my blood to ice. I slowly turned my head, my eyes tracing the cables I had just cut along the floor, towards the stage, and right to her. There Fang stood, silhouetted by her stage lights pouring in from the curtains. She'd just come through, claws out, teeth bared, rage etched into every detail on her face. I wanted to explain myself, apologizing for having to do this, but my instincts knew better. They took control and sent a single message to every fiber of my body. Fucking run! I dropped everything and ran, pushing back onto the main floor, dashing past the crowd and straight towards the door out in the hallway. As I shouldered my way through, I could hear her screaming behind me, "Get back here, you skinny piece of shit!" My heart was racing as I ran for the exit. Look in her eyes seared into my memory. Fuck, 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 I've screwed up royally here. I need to get out of here, get home, and lay low for a while. I'll apologize to Fang and try to talk it out with her later. Oh, God, she knows where I live. What if she comes for me first? What if Nazer, Ripley, or Trish beat her to it? The school's hallway had never felt so damn long. Raptor, Jesus, when was the last time I ran like this? My lungs were on fire as I sprinted down the main hallway. The main entrance was in sight, just a little further. I was completely out of breath as I pushed my way through the glass double doors. I needed to stop for just a second to recover. As I took my first gulp of that sweet, cold night air, I felt a hand grip my shoulder hard. Guess I'm not as fast as I thought. She hadn't lost me for a second. She spins me around, and I get a moment to look into Fang's beautiful amber eyes. They're red, pupils like pinpricks. The makeup she'd put on in the night was now smudged and ruined. What the fuck is wrong with you? This was our chance, our one shot to make a name for us, and you fucking ruined it. Fang, She stomped forward. Step back. Is this some sick joke to you? Do you just want to see me fail? Trish was right about you. I was just a piece of ass to you, wasn't it? Fang, please. Another enraged step forward. Take another step back. I can see tears start to form in her eyes. You never fucking cared about me. I thought I meant something to you, but you just wanted to drive me away from my friends so you could have me all to yourself. What? I stop as I catch my balance. My foot was halfway over the edge of the top step. Get the fuck out of my life! Fang! As I recoiled from Fang's hand striking my face, my foot slipped, landing onto the step below and rolling, taking all my weight with it. I watched in slow motion as the school and Fang fell away from me, my eyes getting a perfect view of the night sky as I fell backwards. My clumsy body started this chain of events. Now gravity would take me the rest of the way. I just close my eyes and bring my arms to my head as I brace for the inevitable. I feel the first point of contact at the edge. The step hits me square in the ribs, knocking all the wind out of me. My weight carries me down as I begin to roll head over heels. Hard thumps reverberate through my body, every step leaving its mark. At one point, I feel a sickening crack. Eventually, the gods decide my punishment is over, and I come to a stop on the street below. Laying on my side, facing back up the way I've just come. My arms are battered, my chest feels like it had been caved in with a sledgehammer. But my leg, it felt like it was on fire. I tried to roll and prop myself up, but my leg screamed at me to stop. I tried to wiggle the toes on my leg. Nothing. I look down. A sharp bone pokes out. It torn its way through my leg muscles and was now exposed to open air. Bile rises up in my throat at the sight, my eyes beginning to water. I swallow hard and look back up to Fang. Fang looks back down a flight of stairs to me on the street below. In the darkness and with the distance between us, I can't make out her face. Fang? She turns. I watch through the tears as she quickly fades into nothing, more than a shadow in the light of the school's entrance before vanishing entirely from my sight. I drift into unconsciousness as I lie there, gripping my leg. She's gone. Notes. I had this idea knocking around in my head for a while. Finally did something with it. First time writing in years, so constructive criticism welcome. I do have a rough plan for this and do want to keep at it. I just might be a little slow with releasing chapters as I get into this. Thanks goes out to Humanoto's decrepit Discord for getting me to want to try and be creative again, particularly all the people in there that helped me with this, discussed the concept with me, and gave me the feedback on the early version. Schmios.
Grins. Yeah,
Very good.
That is severed connections for when the boy puts out his next chapter. Very good, very good. Look, there's Iron Will 688.
Yeah.
I know that guy. Alright. Let's see here. Alright. Got the next one up on the docket here. This is Raptor Love by Magic Man. Let's see here. The only message tied with this is, if prom ended, way worse. So, that's gonna be interesting, isn't it? Alright, here we go, everybody. Summary. Nothing good lasts forever. Unfortunately for Incognito, this realization will strike him like a sack of bricks. But fear not, he will gradually move forward. Over time, wounds will heal and new interests emerge. Welcome to Raptor. This one is currently 2 chapters long at about 5,000 words. Wait, what? Refresh what? Refresh this? Okay. Alright. Okay. Alright, I've updated. We're good. Alright, let's run it by again. Summary. Nothing lasts forever. An unfortunate incident during the winter formal changes the life of one Incognito. He's faced with a cold realization that sends him down into a harrowing spiral. But with the help of Coach Solly, our lovable human will find new friends and possible new love. A story of true friendship, moving on and rediscovering love where it was once lost. Chapter 1. Bite of a Monster. Location. Night of the formal. Outside. Pushing the side exit open, the frigid breeze hitting my face. Where'd she go? I catch a glimpse of her turning around the corner of the building. Olivia, wait up! Racing after her, rounding the corner, seeing her wheeling down into the carport. As I begin making my way towards her jogging, I hear some curses being thrown into the air coming from Olivia. Ungrateful pieces of shit. To hell with all of them. Finally catching up to Olivia, panting slightly, trying to catch my breath as Olivia finally stops. What the hell happened back there, Olivia? We're by the carport, as crowds of people are exiting the building. Some are waiting on the curb, and some are probably waiting for a valet or some other transportation. Olivia isn't speaking, her body shivering slightly due to the frigid night air. Olivia's eyes level on me, a mixture of anger and pain. Olivia? Olivia? Not answering me, just staring at me. You just blew up out of nowhere at everyone. What's wrong? Olivia's on the brink of tears, her enraged eyes welling with them. But finally, she begins to speak.
Why? Why didn't they get it? What did I do wrong?
My teeth rattle painfully as I close my mouth.
I poured my soul out to those assholes, and look what happened.
Olivia's head slouching backwards as a grunt.
It was all for nothing, those freaks.
Like a knife being twisted in my gut. How was this all for nothing? Swallowing my tongue, I allow her to continue speaking.
You get it, right, Inko?
Her silver eyes glancing up at me, wanting me to agree with her. Yeah, I do. Maybe there's still a chance we can continue. Listen, it's not over. Olivia's face shifted into confusion.
Of course it is. You can deserve better than this.
He does? Look, there's still a way to make it up. Olivia turns and sniffles a little, but she's listening. Right now, things seem really down. I know, but the stage is still probably open. I'm sure if I just gave the word with Ben or Scalar, they'll let you continue and apologize. Olivia's brow furrowed.
Oh my god, shut up. Yedikin was wrong. All those assholes, even you, Inko, all they cared about was themselves.
Well, I mean, your speech. I'm starting to get a little frustrated at this point.
I took your advice, Inko.
She's growing more furious as the conversation continues. Hey, tell your story to them. I don't recall saying to make it all about yourself. So, sorry on my part. Maybe you should go back and apologize too.
Fuck them! Why should I?
Starting to get annoyed with her. Why can't she just apologize? Because it'll make you look bad if you don't. Olivia's face scrunches into an angry scowl.
Like I should give two shits about what they think of me.
Anger finally is letting out. Well, I give two shits because it's going to make me bad. Olivia's frozen. I really shouldn't have said that. But I'm right, though, aren't I?
Are you seriously making this about you?
Olivia screamed at me, her eyes brimming with pure fury. It's not about me, but I'm trying to help you, so it affects me. She tries to yell something, but her voice cracks and breaks into a miserable growl. I watch as tears begin to stream down from her still vicious eyes. Come on, Olivia, that's all I've ever wanted to do. Her voice was deep and stern, responding back.
Well, maybe I don't want you to help.
I'm slightly taken back from her words. You don't really want that, do you?
How do you know? You think you understand me? That you have me all figured out? That you know what I want? Fuck you, Inko!
A hollow feeling resonates through me. She doesn't mean that. She can't. Can she? Look, Olivia, why don't we just go back home? We can talk about this, and maybe on Monday. I'm cut off before I could finish.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go home.
Okay, let me call...
No, I'm going home alone.
Seriously? My face contorts into sadness, as if she was driving a dagger into my heart with that sentence.
Yeah, it's over.
Olivia's eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and anger. Over? What do you mean, over? Olivia turned, started rolling down the sidewalk away from the venue. You can't walk home alone. This is my only chance to fix things with Olivia. I can't let her leave. I just can't. Olivia, listen. My hand grabbing the handle, but that was a huge mistake. Almost like a photo being taken. Everything around us freezes, capturing this moment forever. Olivia's silver eyes burning with hatred etched onto her face as she stares daggers piercing through me straight into my soul. I start feeling something burning on my right arm as if someone was pressing a hot iron onto my naked flesh. But this was worse. Olivia's powerful jaws clamped on my forearm, ripping through the fabric like tissue paper, crimson staining her teeth. Something takes hold of me. Something primal. Something all creatures possess. Fear. And just like that, time resumes. Olivia pulls away, immediate regret laden on her face.
Inko, it was an accident. I didn't mean...
Turning around and trying to reach forward to grab me. I step back. The girl I once knew was gone, but replaced by something much scarier. A predator trying to finish off her prey. She continues to keep wheeling forward, trying to speak to me, but I'm not hearing it. All I'm hearing is my own heartbeat increasing rapidly as her approach gets a bit faster and faster. Looking behind me, trying to see if I can make a run for it, but I end up hitting the ramp leading up to the metro.
Inko, please tell me you're alright.
Her finally reaching me and touching my arm. Get away from me! Pushing her with both arms, sending her back a few feet, and finally getting my opportunity to escape, finally getting past her. I don't know how I ended up home, but eventually I did by some miracle. Collapsing on my knees and my lungs burning for oxygen as silent tears streamed down my face. I lay on my front step, trying to control my erratic breathing before finally catching my breath and getting some of my energy back. Standing up slowly, my body trembling as I slowly entered the house. Its silence more apparent than ever, almost deafening. Walking down the hallway towards the bathroom, the walls feel like they're slowly caving in around me, and everything is spinning as I stumble on my own feet, but somehow catching myself on the wall, knocking a few photos as I try to catch anything. Drip, drip, drip. Looking down, I notice blood dripping from my arm onto the floor, creating a trail, causing me to almost hurl the contents of my stomach, but somehow I managed to keep it down. As more tears keep falling from my face, my forearm aching pain brings me back as I finally make it to my destination. Stumbling to the sink, finally getting a good look at myself, my arm of my dress blazer drenched in blood, the fabric damaged beyond repair. Lifting my arm, I grab the end and begin to slowly take it off. Biting my tongue to suppress a scream, I endured the pain as the fabric dragged across the wound. After what felt like an eternity, I finally managed to remove the blazer and threw it to the side. My gaze shifted downwards, settling on my forearm. Rows of teeth marks marred the side of my forearm, with a small trickle of blood still seeping from the wound. I've watched some SnootTube videos on dressing small wounds, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. As my body starts to shake again, I slowly reach for the medicine cabinet, grabbing the rubbing alcohol. This is going to sting like a... Fuck! As I slowly pour the liquid onto my arm, the stinging is almost unbearable pain as the bottle falls from my hand. Silent screams escaping my mouth as my legs almost give way. As tears start streaming down my face, I'm not finished, and I have to continue. Taking the belt from my waist, I fold it once before biting down, before hyping myself up and continuing. Biting down, I reach down and grab the bottle again. Slowly, I start pouring it, my muffled screams filling the house as I finally coat my arm in the painful liquid, throwing the bottle into the hall. I take a moment before continuing, blood still trickling out of the wound. Grabbing the bag of cotton balls and painfully stuffing them in the wound, I almost feel like I'm fighting through the belts as I keep going. I don't know how long it took, but it was finally done. For the last part, grabbing the bandage wrap before I start wrapping it around my forearm, my vision starts to go blurry as I finish wrapping it. The bathroom is a mess with blood staining the sink and floors. Stumbling away from the sink, I slowly start making my way down the hallway towards my bedroom as my movements start getting slower and slower before my body falls onto the floor. My vision slowly fading as my eyes start closing. For some reason, my mind is filled with one thing as I finally succumb to exhaustion. Olivia. And just to end that one,
Yar.
that motherfucker got
Stuff.
his arm snapped.
Damn.
So-
That shit hurted.
So let me get a bite of that shit real quick. Alright.
Alright. What do we have next on the docket? We have, I believe we have our finest hour, chapter 1.
Yep, you wanna read the message with the Discord real quick?
Sure.
Alright. Started writing a small cast of characters since discovering Wani and Snoop back in March of this year. All started with Teddy McManus, St. Hammond's footballer, with a big dumb exterior and a gooey nerdy inside. Our finest hour covers less favorable aspects of high school, such as the tribes and cliques students tend to stick to, whether for better or worse for their self-esteem and self-images. It's a story I've been slowly crafting for months, and the pieces are slowly coming together. Comedy and tragedy aplenty. That is the message tied with that one.
Alright. Our Finest Hour by Comical Ken. Summary. Follow the McManus family, new to Volcadero Bluffs as they stumble through the trials and tribulations of being human in a world seemingly intent on bearing down on them. Some silently take on more than their share of the weight, all for the sake of their loved ones, for the sake of family. The greatest hour fast approaches, whether they are aware or not. Chapter 1. White Jerseys. The faint buzz of fluorescent lighting was the only sound in an empty locker room that accompanied the large form of a young man, slouched over a lonely steel bench. He sat with his back to the lockers and faced the room. Length mirror, a seemingly contemplative furrow on his brow, on an otherwise stony face. Strong elbows rested on his padded knees and great shoulders slumped forward, accentuated by armor-like padding strapped under a plain white sports jersey. The man held all the appearances of a gridiron footballer, save for the lack of a distinctive number on his jersey differentiating him from the rest of the whatever team he was playing for. The young man stared intently at his reflection from across the room, his chest slowly heaving in and out as to calm his nerves and clear his thoughts. In, out, in, out. Evergreen eyes twinkled beneath thick eyebrows, and he lifted a great arm to run a hand through his messy nest of reddish-brown hair. His gaze abandoned his self-imposing staring contest between him and the mirrors to inspect the helmet that sat on the bench next to him. He lifted the helmet by the face mask and held it up level with his gaze to thoroughly scrutinize it. It was navy blue in color, polished to shine even in the dim lights of the locker room. He shifted it to examine the likeness of the school mascot printed on the side, a pale violet raptor with two horizontal orange stripes between hardened eyes and a smug smile, adorned with the gold headband, the St. Hammond feather tails. The blast of a door being opened and the burst of natural light brought with it was enough to stir the young man from his stupor, the sound of screeching metal hinges echoing off the walls of the room before the door slammed against the tiled wall. A large figure stood in the doorway, its hands gripping door almost enough to impact the alloy. The young man in the locker room already knew what to expect as he froze in place and blinked rapidly until his eyes adjusted to the sudden introduction of light. Ted McManus! The voice unmistakably belonged to the imposing figure standing at the doorway. A large ape of a man stood there, a backwards navy blue baseball cap haphazardly worn over his cranium so loosely that it covered his eyes. The clipboard was clutched in his free hand and it looked as if it were ready to snap in half under the man's grip. Ted McManus had no time to consider how the man was able to see with such an obstruction over his face without running headlong into Get your ass out here, cadet, unless you lost your nerve already. Ted sprung to his feet, flipped his helmet in his grasp and jammed it over his head in one practice motion. His limbs tightened as he jogged towards the coach and the open doorway. There were no nerves to be lost. Not today. Not ever. Good! Now move, move, move! Ordered the man, certainly cutting an intimidating enough figure, but he at least stepped aside enough for Ted to hustle past him. Yes, coach! Shouted the young man, his rumbling voice hardly half as loud as Coach's. Ted stomped out into the midsummer sun. The slight dampness under his feet informed him it was still early enough in the morning that the dew hadn't yet completely evaporated. The high school's track and field was a hot pan of activity, even this early in the morning. Almost a month into summer break, football tryouts were coming up for the Feathertails, and football camp was officially underway to whip new recruits into shape. Students in similar attire as Ted stood in a row along one of the field's sidelines, while many of the team's current roster, dressed in either home or away uniforms, were out in the field performing various offensive and defensive drills under the watchful eye and instruction of the team's other coordinators and coaches. Ted joined the end of the lineup of wannabe footballers, other students of various years in high school, and all here with the same goal in mind, landing a spot on the team. From his peripherals, he counted maybe a dozen or so on the sideline, all of them a diverse mix of saurian, every color dino sapien you could imagine. Though everyone was outfitted in some blank white jersey, Ted immediately stood out from everyone else around. He was, in fact, currently the only human on the field. It didn't come as a surprise to him in the slightest. In fact, he seemed to be one of the few humans on his side of Volcadero Bluffs, since his family had just moved over a week ago. The warmer regions always had a higher population of the cold blooded folk, he mused to himself. Ted, in the moments before camp would truly begin, allowed himself to think back on the day that he and his family pulled into the driveway of their new, mostly modest suburban home. Welcome home, Teddy boy, he could hear the voice of his father say. Just like that, Ted found himself back in the passenger seat of the moving truck, his dad's voice waking him from his trance as the truck back toward the garage. Nestled nice and snug in the middle of Volcadero Bluffs. Today's weather, cold and sunny. One of the many cloudless summer days to come. Behind them, a single car horn sounded off, and Ted peered out the windshield to see his mother and older sister exit the family station wagon on the street in front of the house. Definitely smells saltier here, Ted observed while he wrinkled his nose a little, sticking an arm out of the open passenger window and waving at the other half of his immediate family. Sure does, his father agreed with a sagely nod. There'll be an adjustment period, of course, but his father switched off the truck and tossed in his son the keys, who caught them with a startled blink. It's nice here almost year round. I hear they even rarely get any snow. No snow? A voice repeated just outside of Ted's door. He jerked in surprise and turned to see his older sister lean in through the open window, resting her forearms on the bottom of the opening with clasped hands. She wore dark eyeshadow that stood out against her pale skin and freckled face. So no more freezing winters? She inquired, hopefully, with a pleading look in her twinkling emerald eyes. It's not quite what I was implying, but hey, who knows? Just remember to unpack your winter clothes, eh? Their father countered with a broad grin. Ted's sister seemed to deflate a little with a small pout, and Ted had to clear his throat to get her attention with a somewhat agitated expression. Move, Chloe. Ted growled at his sister, pocketing the keys and hovering his hand over the door handle. Chloe blew a cartoonish raspberry at him and stepped away from the truck, allowing him to swing open the door and hop out. Their dad followed suit and stepped out the driver's side as their mother approached him. Ted took a deep breath of fresh, certainly saltier air from what he's used to, while their parents meet in the driveway, Dad taking their mom in their arms as she giggled. Ted turned away to gaze out at the street. The neighborhood seemed decent enough at first glance. Family-sized suburban homes, white picketed fence, freshly cut lawns. They even got a few waves from a couple Saurians Ted assumed were their new neighbors when their truck pulled into the street. He absorbed the views and committed them to memory. Already he felt like a fish out of water. Slowly, the McManus boy turned around and a cast of thoughtful gaze on their new two-story house. A pair of smaller footsteps stopped next to him, but he doesn't need to turn to know who it is. Our new home, huh? Chloe inquired a little dryly as she crossed her arms over her chest. Hope we both get to live in it for the rest of school, at least. The statement hung in the air for a moment as her brother seemed to chew on a response before thinking. He inclined his head and glanced at his sister thoughtfully. Things will be different this time, I think, he replied, a little slower than usual as he thought out a response. Dad mentioning it during the ride here. He felt Chloe turn and eye him incredulously, but Ted's gaze was fixed on the house and property around it. Oh, really? What'd he say, Teddy? Wake up, Cupcake! Oh, wake up, Cupcake! Ted snapped to attention with a start and found himself back on the sideline of the football field as his new house instantly fizzled away. The football camp attendees closest to him had turned to stare with a mix of bemused and snickering faces. He groaned internally and wondered just how long he'd zoned out. Ted, for the most part, awkwardly ignored the inquisitive looks from his peers, and he glanced up at the ape of a man standing directly in front of him. The man leered at him from under his cap. Ted stood up straighter, looked the coach straight in the eye as best as he could, but said nothing. It seemed as though the man had made his rounds to each of the other attendees in the line as well and nodded at Ted before addressing them all. Now then, welcome to St. Hammond's Summer Football Camp's cadets! Some of you may have already known me, but for those of you who do not, he paused and Ted could have sworn the man was giving him side-eye, but it was hard to tell with the man's hat sitting over his eyes. I am Coach Sully, and this, he taps a foot of grass below, is my glorious gridiron football field. Arms clasped behind his back, the man began to slowly march up and down the line of high schoolers. The other boys were completely silent. The only sounds were from the current roster of players performing drills in the middle of the field behind Coach Sully. Not only will you be learning the ropes of my beloved great American sport, but during this week-long program, my colleagues and I will be putting you all through rigorous tests of speed, endurance, and strength. How fast you think on your feet and how much more. Sully emphasized each category by pointing to each finger on his hand with the opposite, pausing between each one to drive it home. He punctuated his last string of words by smashing the side of his fist into an open palm, froze with a dramatic pause. The coach continued on. This is all for the chance to claim a position on the Tail Feathers next week's tryouts. The air around the lineup of white jerseys grew tense. Ted himself had started to feel giddy with excitement when he barely even acknowledged until that very moment. Coach slowly cleared his throat after a few seconds, probably sensing he'd let his words hang in the air too long. Also, I should let each and every one of you in on a little disclaimer. Sully began to march up and down the lineup again. Ted wondered if this is what boot camp felt like. The man had to have been some form of drill sergeant at one point. Maybe he'd ask his father if he remembered anyone named Sully while he was at basic training. Ted could read the anticipation in the coach's gait, or maybe the coach was just tired of standing still for longer than 40 seconds. Let me tell you right now, cadets, we will not be trying anyone for quarterback this year. However, suddenly he stopped in his tracks and whirled around to face the lineup again. Ted couldn't help but flinch. Everyone here will be learning how to throw the old pigskin away anyway. Why? Because I said so! But mostly because we could always use a secondary. Ted could hear a few whispers shared amongst the lineup, but he remained completely silent. He could have scoffed at some of the snippets of conversation he could make out, however. It seemed like at least one or two of the lineup were specifically there only for quarterback. Ted couldn't help but scoff internally. As the team captain, it was a position that couldn't be treated as just the star and face of the team, but many greenhorns had too many stars in their eyes. Ted felt a little guilty about being so opinionated about it, but it was something he'd seen before. So, with that said, if there are any among you boys whose only intention is trying out for quarterback, and you have no interest in anything else, this is a chance to back out. Coach Soley continued on, certainly not waiting for the whispers to die out on their own. Ted and most of the other lineup stood in place, unperturbed by Coach Soley's warning. Sure enough, two others of their number muttered amongst themselves and stepped back out of the line. Soley addressed them directly while he pointed with one giant hand back at the locker room behind the line. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. Please return your helmets, padding, and jerseys. They are school property, and I will fine you if you do not. He paused for what Ted assumed was dramatic effect before quietly adding, and see you in gym class this fall. Gym class? This guy was a teacher too? The two boys nodded and hustled back. Coach Sully waited in silence through the entire jog of shame and even until the door shut behind them. For the first time that Ted's seen so far, a smile flashed across the ape's face. It was jarring, to say the least. McManus could almost hear the coach's stony face crack with the amount of effort that probably took. It took everything in Ted's powers not to snort out loud at the thought. He needed to stay focused, after all. There is at least one every year, Sully told the rest of the lineup with a shake of his head. A few of the kids in line exchanged amused and somewhat uncertain chuckles, almost as if they weren't sure that was really supposed to be funny. Ted peered at the lineup from his peripherals, about to absent-mindedly count out how many his peers were left when, all right, you! 3, 4, 7! Coach Sully's sharp, bullhorn-like voice both interrupted his train of thought and confirmed the number up for him. Camp begins now! That certainly got everyone's attention. All earlier mirth forgotten, everyone in line, including McManus, stiffened as they awaited whatever was about to happen next. First up, Coach Sully seemed to growl as he looked Ted's way, who felt his gut twist anxiously, once again under the ape's leer. He couldn't distinguish it under the coach's hat, but by Raptor Jesus did he feel it. Since a few of us here need some waking up, let's start with something simple. He gestured with an arm to their left. Ted and the rest of the lineup followed his gaze toward the side of the football field. Run me some laps around the old gridiron. And don't you ladies stop until you found the second whistle. And remember one thing, cadets. He took a step back to them. He took a step back to take them all under his gaze. His quieter tone of voice almost more core striking than when he was yelling, which to Ted seemed like the majority of the time. This is not a race to see who is first. He rumbled, and Ted fought the urge to lean forward to hear him out better. This is a race to see who is left! Ted blinked inquisitively behind his helmet's face mask, but before he could discern what Sully could have possibly meant, the coach blew the first whistle. The young man turned on his heel and followed the rest of the lineup as they scrambled in the direction the coach had wordlessly pointed out, the raised arm and single finger. Ted kept up with the others at first, along the sidelines of the longest side of the field, but he wasn't accustomed to long-distance sprints. He wasn't out of shape by any means, but he was a large guy to say the least. Coach Sully's words echoed in the back of his helmeted cranium as he focused on his breathing. In through his nose, and out steadily through his mouth. Ted drove his legs against the ground and his cleats penetrated the slick, dew-dampened grass. The athletic footwear would prevent him from slipping as long as he steadily ran in a straight line, but any tricky maneuvers in his slick terrain, he'd be hard-pressed to keep his rectum from hitting the ground. Luckily, this was just run to wake his body and mind up, right? His arms pumped with every step, hands clenched in a tight fist with narrowed eyes that stared ahead of him with a face of greedy determination. The other 6 were only a few yards ahead, 1 or 2 of the fastest already, good distance from the rest of the pack, seemingly heedless of Sully's warning. Ted and his colleagues were a leap in when he realized a great number of current Feathertail players, or maybe all of them from his perspective, had stopped in their own assigned drills just to turn and watch them run. Just as Ted had begun to wonder why they seemed to be lined up like living barriers, one of them suddenly charged toward his line of runners and bulldozed straight into one of them, knocking the unawares white jerseys clad boys clear off his feet haphazardly to the ground. The nearest of Ted's comrades were startled by the commotion and sidestepped around the hulking Feathertail's players to the best of their abilities, given the sudden obstruction in the wet grass. Alarmed, Ted maneuvered out of the way of the attackers and victim them on the ground in the middle of the path and gave them a wide berth. He heard a few curses exchanged between them as he hustled past, most of them coming from the other white jersey, as the Feathertail just stood over him smugly, fists on his hip. Ted wondered what kind of fluke that was. No one, however, not even any of the other Feathertail players, seemed to reprimand the culprit either. Then, Ted's eyes locked onto another one of the players standing off to the side. Their eyes locked, and Ted felt himself tense up instinctively. A Triceratops who was nearly a head taller than him stepped into Ted's path, and before he could react or move away, the trike's shoulder checked him hard. In the instant it happened, Ted could have assumed his shoulder slammed into the corner of a brick wall if he didn't notice the large Saurian step up and try to throw him off. Ted had to swing his arms at his side as if he were swimming in the air to keep balance. His cleats bit into the earth in his feet to prevent himself from sliding, and though he stumbled for a step or two, he righted himself and continued after the other white jerseys. Shaken and admittedly miffed, McManus stole a glance at the Triceratops behind him and furrowed his brow when he noticed the smug grin on the big guy's face. What was that all about? Ahead of him, just as they made their final turn of their first lap around the field, McManus saw another kid in a white jersey who had fallen straight on his rectum. A bigger player dressed in the Feathertail's home uniform standing over him with his hands on his hips. "Stay down, kid," Feathertail's players growled with a trace of mirth in his voice as Ted lumbered past. The down player turned to glare up at Ted and then the guy who knocked him down, sputtering, "What? Why? Coach said..." "You're down, so you're out. Just watch, will you?" Ted skirted past them and began to understand what Coach Sully had meant. This wasn't just an exercise to see who could run. It was a test of endurance and field awareness as well. Right from the get-go, they were being silently judged and scrutinized by not just Coach Sully, but the current roster of players. This was certainly a different experience than what Ted had ever experienced. This was fun. Ted was just halfway around the field during the second lap when another Feathertails player dived in front of him, belly sliding across the grass in an attempt to trip him up. Ted sprung forward on the balls of his feet and cleared the other player just barely, and he could feel the bottom of his cleats almost snag across the Saurian's shoulder pads and drag him down. After another awkward trip up, Ted managed to stay on his feet and pounded down the straight and narrow, looking as if he was about to catch up with the remainder of his lineup, only 4 of them left. He caught a glimpse of Coach Sully as he passed him on the field again, but that was when his eyes found purchase on the wall of death only 30 or so yards straight ahead of him. A trio of Feathertail players, defensive linemen by the looks of them, stood shoulder to shoulder like Spartan warriors at the end of a straightaway and were already barreling toward the small pack of white jerseys. Even for football players, Ted could hardly believe they were high schoolers. Each was a different breed of dino, an ankylosaur, spino, and a baryonyx. It was a nightmare sight for the unprepared. His 4 comrades seemed to agree as they panicked. Two of the most nimble of the bunch dove out of the way and crashed painfully in the ground, while the other two, bless their brave or stupid souls, took the wall head on with the intention of breaking through. Luckily for Ted, one of the linemen broke off the trio to shove a white jersey effortlessly to the side of the field, while the other two men handled the remaining guy until he was dropped like a sack of rocks, clearly getting the short end of the exchange. The two linemen directly in Ted's path turned as he approached, but Ted had already devised a desperate plan to evade most of what was rushing him. McManus was strong, sure, but even he wasn't quite at the level where he could tango with two burly Surians at once. They already outmuscled, never mind outnumbered him. Ted, in the second he had to do so, mentally mapped out a path he could take, and if he could just angle ankles to suddenly spring to the left without orchestrating it for
You missed a line.
yeah, see. Mentally mapped out a path he could take, and as if just angle himself where he had only had to deal with one of the scary linemen, he might have a chance. His legs pumped underneath him, and he pivoted his ankles to suddenly spring to the left without orchestrating it for the two burly competitors to read in and intercept. The dino closest to him, the ankylosaur, was almost within an arm's reach as Ted's eyes snapped in his adversary's direction. He could see the smirk on the lineman's face, as if Ted was another greenhorn to just bat aside and teach a lesson. The other player's arms were posed to grapple him under the shoulder pads and drive him backward. It was the standard approach a lineman used to root his contender in place and prevent him from disrupting the play. Ted threw an arm out, tensed the muscle in his bicep with fingers outstretched and his palm out. His hands found purchase on the lineman's shoulder and instantly pushed back with all his might, using the motion as a way to propel him forward and out of harm's way. The ankylosaur grunted in surprise and was driven back. Ted fought back a smile when he noticed the lineman stumbled back in an effort to stay on his feet, and he could just barely make out that the smirk had been surprised by a look of surprise on his horned face. The final blend in the field quickly approached when Ted returned his focus on the path ahead, but that was when he realized another Feathertail player was gaining on him. He barely heard the Utahraptor until it was too late. Before Ted could alter his course to throw the linebacker off, the faster and more agile player growled and threw his arms around him. Ted grit his teeth with a grunt as their bodies painfully collided, and he finally collapsed to his knees mid-run and dragged face down into the grass. He heard a whistle blow somewhere ahead of him, and he looked up to see Coach Sully standing there where he had originally been lined up, hands on his hip. "All right, you slippery cadets, back in line!" With a bit of a grumble, Ted began to shakily rise from the ground when a clawed hand entered his peripherals. Paused, glanced up, and saw the same raptor who took him down, now crouched beside him with an outstretched hand. The human hesitated a split second, and the Tail Feathers player spoke with a smooth but slightly winded voice. "Nice moves, bud." He greeted with a sharp-toothed grin. Ted would have been taken aback had there been any kind of aggression behind it, but the guy seemed pretty laid back for someone who just laid him out. His scales were of a light silvery gray and caught the sunlight in ways nothing short of impressive. Behind the face mask and under his helmet, Ted could see a pair of azure eyes beaming down at him. "You played before?" The carnivore inquired, his tail swished lazily behind him. Ted smiled and took the guy's offered hand, and the both of them rose back up to their full height. "A bit," growled, but not unkindly. He covered his mouth with a closed fist to clear his throat and jostle his vocal cords awake. "Little Valley High, left tackle." "Huh, well that doesn't ring any bells," the Utahraptor observed with an inquisitive expression. Then his face brightened as if it seemed to remember something. "Oh, name's Frankie." He extended his clawed hand again. "Ted." The human replied and took the raptor's hand to give it a strong shake. "Not surprised. It's way up. Move it, McManus! Now is not the time for a meet and greet, you two, Davis!" Ted and Frankie exchanged exasperated looks before each turned to their respective sides of the field. Ted returned to the sidelines where the other white jerseys had begun to gather at. Colt Soley reined them in with a look that suggested he was about to throw something at them. Ted took his place in almost the exact same spot in the lineup as he had earlier. All right, gentlemen, the coach bellowed with a satisfied grin on his face. How are we feeling now? The ape's lip pulled up to reveal a huge grin, gritting his teeth as if to bite back a diabolical snicker. The boys lined up before him, now grass-stained and winded, collectively grunted back at Soley in disdain. The coach collected himself, and the last of his mirth dissipated behind the side of a closed fist he brought up to cover his mouth. Good! Football is a contact sport, gentlemen. You will get hit, no matter what position you are in, and it will hurt. If not now, then usually the next morning. He paused and stared at each battered trainee in line, scrutinizing each of them individually, despite no one else being able to meet his gaze. That being said, are you greenhorns awake yet? There were several seconds of silence before some of the white jerseys spoke up, Ted not being one of them at first. What? I can't hear you. Are you sure you're all awake, or do we need another lap? No, sir, most of the boys answered collectively. Even Ted managed to add his own voice this time. Excellent! Coach Soley clapped his hands and rubbed his palms together. Now we can really begin. Each day this week you will be undergoing footwork drills, blocking drills, tackling, kicking, and yes, passing drills. Some of the boys exchanged looks, but everyone remained silent as the coach continued on. You will all be instructed and assessed by myself and our other wonderful coaching staff every step of the way. When they talk, you will listen. Do I make myself clear, cadets? Yes, coach, barked the collective voices of the line. Good. Now let's continue with some footwork and basic blocking drills. But before that, let's break off at our glorious sideline hydration station. Coach Soley motioned enthusiastically to the side of himself, and Ted's gaze was directed towards a 6-foot fold-up table with stacks of paper cuts and at least a half dozen water coolers. They took a few minutes to refresh themselves, the coach going on about the importance of keeping hydrated, especially during the hot summer days to come. Then, when everyone had their aqua, Soley clapped his meaty hands together to get everyone's attention. Now let's get moving, men. The agility ladders, hop, hop, hop! The rest of the morning went quickly enough for Ted. After a demonstration of various agility and speed drills from Soley himself, each one of them were called up to the spot one at a time, one after the other. The blocking drills were what Ted found himself excelling at the most, which didn't come as much of a surprise to him. Coach Soley called each one of them up at a time to the imaginary line scrimmage. The hulking ape, wielding a large blocking pad, clutched in both hands and instructed them to try and drive him back. No one present could drive the coach more than a single yard, but when Ted was called up to take his stance at the line of scrimmage, he charged into Soley in the pad with all his might and drove forward until Soley stopped him. At first, Ted thought he had eared, but when he backed off and relaxed his stance, he was startled to see a savage grin on Soley's face with a sagely nod of approval. Around noon, the group of trainees were sat around Soley's self-declared hydration station for one last break to wrap up the day of camp. The coach took the opportunity to roll out a whiteboard from somewhere off to the side of the field, and while everyone hydrated and rested up, he went over basic offense, defense, and special team lineups, as well as an overview of what each position was responsible for. Solely then breezed over their expected curriculum for the camp itself in the next 6 days, leading up tryouts almost exactly 1 week from. Part of Ted was surprised at how intensive this football program sounded like it was going to be, remembering back to how St. Hammond was described mostly as a private school for the arts. It wasn't an unwelcome realization to Ted by any means, and as long as he made a spot on the team, he felt like he had a purpose for being in the school to start with. Coach Soley's sharp voice brought him back to the waking world yet again, just as his thoughts had begun to linger elsewhere. So, the ape pipes up. Ted had a couple others flinch at the sudden heightening of the man's voice. As today was meant to be mainly an introductory to camp, this is a good place for us to stop for the day, the coach says as he nods to himself. His arms return to his sides and he holds up a finger at them to emphasize his next statement. Tomorrow begins your real football training. He stands up straighter than before and slaps a hand over his heart, as if about to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I will do everything in my power to craft each and every one of you sorry cadets into potential footballers by the end of this next week. The rest of it will be up to you. A mighty grin flits across his face, and even Ted feels a small smile tugging at his own. See you tomorrow at 0800 hours. Dismissed! Ted and his fellows had swiftly returned to the locker room, Ted bringing up the rear. As the guys began talking amongst themselves over the sound of slamming lockers, Ted only listened to the conversations happening around him. So that's why he requested we gear up all the way for camp, one of the boys said aloud to everyone in the room, shedding his shirt and fiddling with the straps on his shoulder pads. Yeah, no shit. Really wouldn't have appreciated being thrown around by the big fucker without a helmet on, at least, another grumbled, seated on the bench while he struggled with his shoelaces. You guys are wimps. I took on 2 of those linemen alone, another slightly larger Saurian said, roughly the same size as Ted. Yeah, and you still got dropped, dumbass. The locker room echoed with shared laughter. Even Ted cracked a smile. Though he had been learning and running alongside these guys all morning, he learned exactly 0 of their names and barely interacted with them outside of the drills. Suddenly, he felt a pang of nervousness and kept himself silently busy in the removal of his helmet and shoulder pads, his jersey still attached to the pads and lifting off with it. He tossed his grass-stained jersey inside the duffel bag and he brought with him, and after an odor test with a sniff to each armpit, he grimaced and reapplied deodorant from the trip home. For the trip home. Ted may have been swiftly aging through his teenage years, but he refused to smell like one. After a quick change into a clean black tank top, Ted felt ready enough to hit the dusty trails. He opted to keep his football tights and the leg paddings underneath on, but made the tactical decision to trade his cleats for sneakers, discarding them in his bag as well. The trip home wouldn't be a long walk at all, and he felt much more comfortable changing at home than in a room full of strangers. Ted was among the first to leave the locker room, duffel bag slung over his shoulder as he trudged quietly through the grass. The morning dew long since evaporated in late morning sun. Now well on his way towards the school parking lot, he could still hear the commotion that was the ongoing Feathertails football practice, undoubtedly running until the early hours of the afternoon. A small smile graced Ted's thin lips as he imagined himself returning to regular football practice. He imagined himself donning an actual numbered jersey complete with McManus in bright bold letters across his shoulder blades, crouched at the offense lineup during the first play of the first game of the season. It would be like old times again, despite the new surroundings. Half of him felt like it was a pipe dream, that he would only be able to play a contact sport with kids that, much of the time, were above his weight class. The other half of Ted was confident he'd be playing for the Feathertails in the not-so-distant future. His indomitable human spirit told him so. It also didn't hurt that he knew the game fairly well by now, like the back of his hand even. Despite this particular league's fairly different regulations and expectations about playing with and against Saurian players, he felt moderately confident he'd be able to pull off the same plays he did playing for Little Valley High, even if that was only the first half of his high school career. The lumbering Ted had just barely stepped onto the hot tar of the half-empty parking lot when a familiar voice called out to him from across the asphalt sea. The surface shimmering mirage-like form, the scorching rays of the sun. Clearly startled, he turned towards the direction of the voice, and there was none other than his older sister, Chloe. And did she get a car? She was leaned up against the driver's side of the yellow sports car, wearing her usual attire, some form of band shirt or another with an unintelligibly written name, dark jean shorts, and a smug grin. From across the parking lot, her long red hair made it look as if a jet of flame had been running across along her scalp and down her neck. When Lee finally took notice of her, she inclined her head, crossed her arms, and stared at her brother expectantly. With an inquisitive frown directly opposite of the expression Chloe wore, Ted hesitantly approached. He had not been expecting a ride home when they only lived blocks away from the school, especially in the form of his sister. When he was within reasonable earshot, within needing to raise her voice again, Chloe spoke again in a song tone of voice and gestured with her head towards her rusty steed, all while wearing the same telltale grin. Get in, nerd! We're going shopping! That's chapter 1. Very, very good.
We got the football.
Yeah,
Ugh.
he put the coach solely into football.
Put the McMahon in the football.
Hey, look. The Jake Parade.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Alright. Close that tab with the fucking music. Alright. Not gonna lie, my brain is just imagining Manus of the Abyss as a football player. Yo, he'd probably go hard, though.
Hell yeah.
Alright. Now we are up to the next one, which, as you might be able to tell from the cover here, is another one by our boy Ken. The message in the Discord is as follows. A totally different story I just started, however, has the working title All That's Left, and involves the same cast as well as a blend of familiar, well-loved, or well-hated characters. Totally running off the last writing prompt, it's set in a post-meteorite setting. Millions are dead, nations utterly crippled, and the world has entered a strange state of perpetual dusk, perhaps signifying the slow and agonizing death of the world. We follow Redmond McManus as he returns home from deployment to find his family. The lands around Volcadera have become a lawless no-man's land, but there are worse things out there than bands of street gangs and scavengers. Alright. And with that, we shall now get started. Big Red McManus in All That's Left. A one-shot weekly writing prompt entry turned short fic. Oops. By Comical Ken. Chapter 1. The Forever Dusk. 5 months. It's been 5 months since the meteor was shot out of the atmosphere by our governments in a desperate attempt to save the Earth from total annihilation. 5 months since the debris leveled parts of the Earth, killing millions and leaving so many more without homes and families. We were never given the exact numbers, and all of us in my company knew why. Determining the death toll was either an impossible task, or our superiors didn't want to demoralize us any further. There was a rumor floating around our battalion that parts of the U.S. was pelted by irradiated chunks of space rock the size of small cities, resulting in catastrophic loss of life. But our superiors denied the allegations and told us to do our job. Our job? Which used to be to fight and kill in the name of the land of the free. It just changed drastically. Wars and troubling situations with other nations overseas seemed to completely dissipate in the face of this global destruction. My rifle company, the 2nd Battalion, of the 30th Marine Regiment, was originally deployed overseas to Eastern Europe to embark on a war none of us had wanted, but all of us saw coming. Before a single one of our rifles fired in the name of sticking at its tyrannical regimes, a new kind of hell happened instead. A chunk of meteorite that was blasted to hell crashed into the horizon ahead, maybe 35 clicks ahead of our position. We were lucky to make it out of there alive, as the resulting blast was nothing short of a nuclear explosion. Since then, our fire teams have spent the last few months digging out survivors, re-establishing civilization, and forming security against looters and criminal gangs that were on the rise daily. All the while, we were kept in the dark about what was going on back home. 5 long, grueling months of zero communication from my wife or my kids as Eidolon Company was deployed county to county in Eastern Europe, keeping the peace and helping reestablish order the best we could. To be honest, with each place my boys and I were deployed, we were feeling less and less hopeful about home. This side of the planet was racked with meteorite chunks, crippling entire continents as far as we could tell. Why would home be any different? Finally, the call was made for my boys and I to return home. This tour of duty, if you could call it that, was over. Not a moment too soon, either. I heard talk from more than a few of my boys about deserting only a few days prior and finding their own way home. I couldn't blame them, of course. Hell, I was one day away from asking to join them. Me, their commanding officer, Captain Redmond McManus. Big Red, they called me. Under normal circumstances, I would have ripped them a new asshole and had them court-martialed. All the people my boys and I pulled out of the rubble, be them human, saurian, or simian, working in tandem with soldiers that we would have been shooting at. They have done the same for us if the roles were reversed. I hate the fact that thoughts exist in my head. It's not one I'm proud of. But I've seen enough shit to theorize how much a man would really do for a stranger out of the kindness of his heart if he wasn't under your orders. Big Redmond, you awakened, eh? Eyes up. I snap to attention and sit up straight as a ruler. If I still had my service rifle, I'd be gripping it with white knuckles. The lime green raptor standing in front of me looks taken aback, and I'm rewarded with a short hiss of surprise from my reflexes. Yes! At ease, man! I'm Captain, damn! Sorry, Lieutenant. I groan apologetically, reaching behind me to rub the stiff muscles lining the back of my neck. Just how long was I out? My eyes dart around me briefly, and I come to terms with my immediate surroundings, or lack thereof. The inside of a V-22 Osprey wasn't much to look at. All you really had to look forward to was staring at the guy sitting across from you for however long you were packed in with him and 22 other Marines. This time, however, I was sitting alone, with no one but my man, Lieutenant Darrell Reeves, who was currently standing in the troop bay off to the side of me, his ever-inquisitive gaze pointed toward the back of the aircraft. We got the go-ahead to pop the hatch open to take a look-see. Care to look, McManus? Reeves shouted over the twin Allison 501 M80C engines. I nod, already dreading what we're about to bear witness to. No amount of debriefs would probably ever prepare me for it. When we were discharged, we were given the option to stay and be reassigned elsewhere, but I had more than enough reason to get the hell out of the service. Everyone, no matter their status, was finally given the rundown with the U.S.'s current predicament. When they sat me down, I couldn't help but appreciate how blunt they were. Right off the bat, they told me Volcadera Bay, my home, was hit by a chunk of meteorite old fucking Uncle Sam thought to fire to hell, only for it to backfire in the worst way possible. But who's bitter? Fuck it, may as well rip off that band-aid, I muttered to myself. What? Fucking hell, open it! The loading ramp shifts slowly open as the mechanisms hold it in place where to life. A dull orange light floods the bay, and both Reeves and I look on in anticipation. I unbuckle my safety harness and join the lieutenant near the edge. The ramp opened just enough for us to shimmy toward the back of the aircraft and peer out the back. The first thing I noticed was the light. Last I checked, it was the middle of the morning, but everything seemed to be cast in a perpetual dusk. Worry grips my chest when I think back to our last few deployments. Half a world away, and the sky still looked the same. Damn. But that's not what caught my attention the most. See that? That's where the space rocket, Captain Man! I follow Reeves' finger and squint my eyes to get a better look. The bay was a few clicks away now, and we were rapidly leaving it behind, though I could make out a thick cloud of mist as far as the eye could see, covering almost the entirety of the bay over the water and along the beach. It wasn't morning fog rolling in from the ocean. Even from our aircraft, thousands of feet above and miles away, and I could see the mist churning and stirring like thick, angry storm clouds. The land around it didn't look much better. What used to be rolling dunes of white sand and green grass was a sickly, rusted skin of grayish-brown. I swear I could see glowing angry veins of dull orange and red, as if the beaches were bleeding the earth's prized lifeblood. What the fuck? I say out loud, to which Reeves nods in agreement. The ramp closes again, swallowing up the putrid orange forever dusk, and leaving us in the artificial lighting of the troop bay again. Apparently the space rock hit a volcano under the ocean, Gabin, Reeves explained, while lowering his voice since he was no longer fighting the Osprey's engines for who could be the loudest. The two Marines took their respective seats again, one sitting across from the other. That, combined with whatever nuclear shit the meteorite was shot out of the sky with, makes for a whole bay-wide soup another fucking thank you. This is why they made us wait 5 feckin' months before sending us home, I growl. How bad was it back then? I didn't want to imagine it, but I did. During the debrief, my commanding officers told me the meteorite caused one of the biggest tsunamis Volcadera had ever seen, and it was just a couple months ago, when the floodwaters finally receded. Thank God most people got evacuated just in time, particularly the folks on the upper levels of the city, like my family. My wife was smart, a woman with damn more intellect than my dumbass would ever have. She would have been the first of our neighborhood dragging our kids out of there to higher and safer grounds. Our family had to be safe. I don't know, Captain, but I do know they don't want us anywhere near the bay for, quote, health and safety reasons. Up to Christ on a stick. We were on our way to Camp Pendleton, one of the largest military camps in the country, now housing most of Volcadera's survivors, where my family should be waiting for me. Our aircraft touched down at around 1,000 hours, and loading ramp opened to reveal the same orange daylight we've almost grown accustomed to. Reeves and I said our goodbyes there in the Osprey, the man saying he had been reassigned to our sister base on the other side of the salt marsh 100 clicks east. A few other men joined him, Marines I've never met before nor recognized. I saluted my old friend, and we parted ways. Over the roar of the aircraft, he shouted he'd buy me a drink when he sees me again. I'll hold you to that one, Lieutenant. Semper Fi, you crazy bastard. Waiting for me with his arms clasped behind his back was Sergeant Major Gunner Frey, dressed in his service uniform. He was a tall man and broad-shouldered, mainly due to his ankly sword attributes. His copper scales shimmered under the ember-hued sunlight. As surprised as I was to see the man in charge standing there and staring me down since the moment I touched, I cleared the Osprey with a sense of urgency and stood in front of him, tapped my feet together, and saluted the senior enlisted advisor. Sergeant Major, sir! I shout, my voice no doubt carrying over the hustle and bustle of the airfield we stood in. The senior advisor's gnarled snout pulled up to form a smile, and he held out a strong hand for me to shake, to which I immediately obliged. I could still make out where the shrapnel hit him all those years ago, the scar tissue looking much more pronounced up close. Bastard's a tough son of a bitch. Always has. Howdy, son. Glad to see you home in one piece, Frey greeted, his voice like gravel. We grasped each other's arms fiercely, but not unkindly, our muscles bulging under our outwear. His grin grew wider, and he let go. I did the same.
I just wish it were under better circumstances.
As do I, sir, I replied curtly, keeping my expression guarded despite the flare of irritation in my head. I almost know it was this man's decision for keeping me and so many others away from home for so long, but I'll bite my tongue for now. Change the subject will do wonders here. What's the situation, Sergeant Major? Frey's smile disappears, flickers, and fades, and the older man switches on his own poker face. He looks around the airfield, then sighs to himself.
Walk with me.
Camp Pendleton was huge, large enough to be a small city in its own right. It had blocks and blocks worth of modest-sized houses, large enough for the average family. They were originally built for military families to live as the parents worked the base. There were grocery stores, restaurants, bars, retail stores of all caliber, and entire school districts for kids of said military families to attend. Hell, the place was practically a mini Volcadera itself. Frey began to inform me of how the base had been housing thousands of refugees from Volcadera, and how the camp had been divided up to accommodate them, the current families living there, and the military operations. Supplies had been, unsurprisingly, depleting much faster than they could keep up with. They never truly ran out of food and water, not yet at least, and even with everything being rationed off, they were cutting it too close. So they started doing supply runs between their sister base, 29 Palms, across the bay after they were able to communicate with them. Only 2 of the first 4 convoys they sent ever came back, with less than half of the manned crew with each surviving convoy. When the sergeant major informed me of this, I have to catch myself from missing a step during a stroll down the airfield and disguise it with a cough as I turn my head away from the senior officer. Frey grimaces and nods, as if seeing through my facade, but agreeing with my initial surprise.
The Marines said they were attacked from all sides by bandits and organized gangs. It was like nothing they'd ever seen before, and a lot of those men fought in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Gunner Frey continued on. Eventually, one of the only reliable ways of trading supplies back and forth was via aircraft, but I was surprised to find out only 1 or 2 of those had come back in one piece as well. Just what the hell was making such short work of trained military men and equipment? Sounds like high time to coordinate and seek and destroy all, take out those gangs, Sergeant Major, I suggest without hesitation. Those insurgents were killing our boys. It was only fair to return the favor with extreme prejudice. We had lives on the line, after all. The sergeant major nods his agreement, and he pauses off to the side of the airfield, now standing by a watchtower in a tall, chain-link fence top-off with twisted barbed wire.
That's where I think I'd ask your help, Captain. You and your platoons all had a knack for locating targets and never letting off of them. I could really use your expertise and leadership skills.
Frey clasped my shoulder and gripped it firmly, as if vying to keep my attention on him. My face hardened. Of course, they try to keep me in service during times like these, but my mind was already made up the moment I left Europe. I'm sorry, sir, I said, inclining my head to meet the senior officer's golden eyes. But I need to find my family. After everything I've seen overseas, I just want to make sure they're safe. Sergeant Major Reeves' gaze never left mine as a silence hangs over us for a beat, but a smile shines through his disappointment, and he claps my shoulder in approval.
A man with his priorities straight is a man to be respected,
he boomed with a chuckle, brushing off imaginary dirt off the shoulder he had just pummeled. He turned on his heel and stood beside me now, overlooking the rest of the airfield as Marines and servicemen and women alike busied about, loading and unloading, dismantling and inspecting equipment.
You might find them in the civilian centers, Mr. McManus. I hope that you do.
I'll find him, Sergeant Major, I state, not taking anything else as a possibility. They were there. I knew it. The McManus family was strong. My family were survivors, through and through. Frey turned to me, looking even more serious than I'd ever seen him, his facial scars stretching downward as a frown overtakes his snout.
McManus, even in my off chance that they didn't make it to Pendleton, and they're out there in the rabble, I highly recommend you not go leaving the base by yourself.
He pauses, and I watch Frey calmly and silently, waiting to hear him out before telling him to shove off.
You're a hell of a soldier, and one of the best trackers I've had the privilege of working with, but you're just one man.
His steely gaze mercifully lifts off mine as he peers past me, not the forever dusk above.
There's a lot more than gangs out there, son. I can feel it in my bones. Lots of things we have zero intel of or know how to kill.
I let the senior officer's words sink in and release a slow, measured sigh through my nostrils, the airflow making my mustache tickle. Is that an order, sir? Frey looks at me with just as much consideration, and it's a look I know quite well. He's not just the superior officer sizing up his subordinate. In this particular scenario, call it a hunch, but I feel just enough scorn in there as well to be something else. No. He's not just looking at me and my rank. He's looking down on me because I'm human.
No,
He replied simply.
I can't exactly give you direct orders anymore, seeing as you're honorably discharged and no longer under my command. But I will strongly advise you against it. It's just... Listen, son.
He pauses and shakes his head, probably to clear the distaste from his expression.
We can't keep losing good men like this, Captain.
Shall I feel like a dick? No. He still has that same look in his eye. Maybe he still wonders how a human climbed the ranks like I did. He should know that Big Red McManus is more than just fucking skinny, but a good meld of things. The sergeant major and I exchanged a few more somewhat forced pleasantries and part ways, and I make a beeline for the civilian side of things. Crossing under a gate after getting clearance from some security grunts, I stepped into the mini city that, from the looks of things, housed the majority of the refugees. Tents were lined up on semi-neat rows, some only big enough for a single man to sleep in, others the size of small hovels. It looked like the military even brought in materials they used to make pop-up towns for practice ops and built actual dwellings with them. Pedestrians of all walks loitered around the pop-up town, some huddled around heaters and self-contained fires, tucked away in their own circles of friends or family. Others were lined up getting food from bigger dwellings, as cooks and chefs dished out bowls of soup and other varieties of slop. The atmosphere around the refugees was a begrudging one, if I could give it a label. My presence there felt like an unwelcome one. Those that did look up to register my existence did not do so with kindness in their eyes. Looks of reproach and weariness, as if I had just stopped and spat in their rationed slop and continued on my way like it was nothing. It didn't sit well with me in the slightest. These were people who'd been through a kind of hell I could only imagine, picked up what they could from their past lives, and were shipped off to spend the rest of the foreseeable future here. Each soul I walked past has lost someone in their lives. Many of them had lost everything. Each soul had seen unimaginable horrors as the world they knew crumbled around them, like the end of the goddamn world. I didn't envy them. I saw the whole thing mirrored in Eastern Europe. Had my boys flown out any faster, I know I wouldn't be standing here right now. We watched the city-sized chunk of meteor strike an actual city and completely obliterate it in the blink of an eye. There wasn't any fanfare. This wasn't something you'd see in slow motion like the movies. Buildings slowly getting swallowed up, hills getting evaporated. It was as simple as this. One instant, the city and surrounding lands were there, and a micro-fucking-second later, a flash of retina burning orange and white light, and it was all gone. The feeling it left me with could only be described as this. Helplessness. All the obvious feelings were there, of course. Dismay and horror, but helplessness was something that stood out as the most prominent. As my men and I formed ranks, we watched over 1 million people cease to exist. There was nothing we could ever do. We were just spectators at the beginning of the end of the world. Needless to say, I understood the refugees' plight to a degree. Fuck that. I understood it to many degrees. By this point in my inner monologue, I found myself about halfway through Tent City, and while the purpose of even entering this purgatory was in the forefront of my mind, the act of walking in seemed to slowly dismantle my mental faculties. It was a feeling like finally confronting those that faced hell. These refugees now surrounded me. The same hell I'd only witnessed from a safe distance. I felt intimidated by these sorry corpses. Refugees. Back when I lifted hundreds of them from wreckage in another country and basically another world. It was only because I was under orders. After witnessing all that destruction, I was numb to it all. It was the orders that kept us going, turns out. Good Marines followed orders, after all. Sometimes it was all we had to keep us from teetering to the edge. Ready? Especially when all we had left were orders. What did that mean for everyone else? Redman! My thoughts, the whole world I find myself in, no matter what it was in regards to me, everything seemed to come to a crawl around me and within me. My outer senses, my saving graces, are on high alert as a voice strikes my ears and permeates my being. A familiar pair of tiny footsteps approaching at Mach speed. My head snapped toward the blur before the rest of my tense form can possibly react. A smaller form connects with me, and it's with such force that I know for a fact it would have knocked me on my ass had it not been so rigid. Limbs wrapped around my broad frame, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head nestles into a familiar crook in my neck. There's only one person in the world, and any beyond, who could possibly fit so perfectly against me. Emily. I peer down and my eyes find purchase on a woman, the same time she looks up at me. She's just as beautiful as the day I left her. Her features are soft, unmarred by the cruel world we now find ourselves in. Her round face is framed by deep brown hair flowing down her shoulders. Deep blue eyes shimmered with unshed tears, like the surface of the ocean on a summer's day, and a smile crinkled her nose and the corners of her mouth in the adorable way I've come to love over the years. Even the orange light of the eternal dusk seems to enhance her features. Finally, my spellbound body flinches, and I wrap my arms around her. Emily! You're alive! She laughs, her mirth infectious as I lift her up and spin her around. You're alive! I go through a watery chuckle. She wraps her arms around my neck and squeezes as our surroundings blur together. She's alive. The love of my life is alive. After the realization that my wife was here, sending me straight into orbit, reality's gravitational pull gets a hold of me as I remember where we are. I set her back down on the ground, but neither of us make the move to let go of one another. I feel her trembling in my embrace as a torrent of emotions overwhelms her. Even I can't stop a tear or two from rolling down my cheeks. It felt like the light in my life had finally returned, and I could see clearer than ever before. So clearly, in fact, that as soon as I came down from the high of finding her again, I find that something's missing. I open my eyes and silently scan the crowds around us. Most people who witnessed the scene Emily and I had created seemed to have lost interest and turned back to their own business. But it's not them I'm looking for or even remotely concerned with. Gently, I pull away from my wife just enough to see her search her face. She in turn shifts and peers up at me, her cheek resting on my chest. When she sees the serious look on my face, she pulls back a little more to better watch me. We stare at each other in silence for a beat before a new light flashes across her eyes and she leans her face into mine. I feel my body drift off toward heaven a second time in a matter of seconds as her lips meet mine in a sweet, almost desperate kiss. All this time, and she still tastes the same. We stay locked like this for seconds, minutes, who knows. I wasn't counting. Finally, she breaks away, her chest very quietly heaving as her lungs work to suck in the air we stole from one another. Red, God, I missed you, she whispered shakily, and I smiled and our foreheads touched until we found composure again, or at least we were forced to find composure when a man shifted past us, clearing his throat. Get a fucking room, you two, he grumbled under his breath. I shifted a little to glare into the back of his head as he shuffled past, but as soon as it flares up, my irritation melts away at the sound of Emily's soft giggle. We should probably get out of the middle of the road, love bug, she states as she begins to withdraw. I grunt and unhook my arms from around her begrudgingly, but my hands linger over hers. Finally, a feeling of something missing returns, and I blink and intently peer down at my wife. Emmy, where's Ted and Chloe? Emily's features soften further, and the traces of sorrow start to line her face. My breath hitches and I feel my body stiffen as her hands squeeze mine. Just like that, the world comes crashing down around me again. Emmy? Our kids? We should get off the street, my love. She pulls me along with a surprising show of strength that takes me aback. She turns away to hide her face, and for the brief second before she turns, I see her calm facade crumble. No. No, no, no. What's going on? It can't be like this. I follow her as she pulls me out of the middle of the street, staring after her like she was a ghost. She leads me down a row of tents and pop-up houses until I finally work the courage to stop her with an utterance of her name. She stops, her back still to me. I see a slight tremor in her shoulders. Emily. Are they? I can't finish the sentence. I refuse to vocalize the possibility. Emily slowly shakes her head, and my heart drops into my gut. Sensing my confusion and trepidation, she turns on her heel and looks up at me, a sad but determined glint in her eye. Please, she says softly but firmly. We can talk in our space. There's a lot to tell you, love bug. All I can do is nod, the lump in my throat restricting any more usage of my tongue. She leads me down the path lined with tents, and suddenly I feel as hollow-eyed and crestfallen as the poor souls we walk past. It wasn't supposed to be like this. End of the chapter. Very good, Ken. We got football and we got apocalypse now.
Our boy be cooking.
The range.
All right. It's your turn.
Oh, shit. Oh, yeah. Alright, guys. You know it. You've been waiting for it. Born to Inherit the Stars. Oh, yeah. Kev suggested earlier that we should play Vice's little trailer thing for it again.
Yeah, why not? Give me just a second. Let me pop that up. I should have that on hand here.
Yeah. There's been a lot of hype around this one, but I'll remind everyone, this is my first fic. It's a little rough around the edges on the first part. One of these days I gotta find some accompanying music for this.
Yar. Vice with the really wish I added music now. Alright. Well, here we go.
Once again by our talented Vice.
And now
All
it's
right.
time for Born to Inherit the Stars by our talented Iron.
Alright. Meet Noah Buddy, a farmer's kid from the middle of nowhere whose grandparents convinced his parents to finish his last 4 years of school at Volcano High. He finds himself in over his head as he's adopted into Amber's friend circle. This is a coming-of-age story that deals with the tribulations of growing up in broken homes, overcoming self-doubt, love, and saltwater taffy. As Grandpa says, you were born to inherit the stars. Notes. It's my first time cutting my teeth on a fic like this, and I'm sure my writing is going to reflect this. Also is an ongoing work in progress. Future author here. So when I first wrote chapter 1, it was something I kind of just cobbled together. A rough draft and an idea some friends encouraged me to actually write. Needless to say, it was pretty messy. It still shocks me how many people actually enjoy this. One of the things that really bothered me was the original pacing of this chapter, so I went back and edited to and rewrote some sections of chapter 1 to try and address this. Thanks for checking this out and have a terrific day, schmaz. Chapter 1. Amber Eyes, Blue Skies, and Boba. It was the middle of summer, currently riding shotgun in my grandpa's truck for what feels like an eternity now. I'm being dragged out to his neck of the woods since he convinced my parents to take me off their hands to finish high school. I, naturally, had no say in the matter. Guess I'm not too upset. Grandpa did save me from the monotony of choring all day. That is, unless this was just a ploy to get free labor out of me. A little backstory on me is in order, I suppose. I'm Noah Buddy. Raised in a farm community out in a valley in the middle of nowhere. mostly human populace, but you had the occasional dino from down south looking for work. My family ran an orchard farm with some vineyards for good measure. Up until this point, I was homeschooled. For unrelated reasons, not very popular with the other kids my age. Just a nobody from nowhere important. Now, with that out of the way, a thought had occurred to me, though. I had no idea what to expect of the school or town I'd be staying at for the next 4 odd years. When it came to family visits, Grandma and Grandpa were usually visiting us, not the other way around. I finally break the silence of an otherwise quiet drive. What's it gonna be like when we get there? Coastal? Grandpa said matter of factly. Plenty to see and do. Vague, but now that you had mentioned it, the air did have a crispness to it. Clean, not the dirt and dust I was accustomed to. It was nice. And the school? Nice? He said with a laugh and shrug. I raised an eyebrow at him. The men in my family are notorious for their short answers, so this really comes as no surprise. Just I have to see for myself. Well, most of the attending students are Dino Sapien. Wait, you mean I'm gonna be one of the only humans in the school for immediate? Grandpa gave a scolding look that told me I better watch my tongue. I, I mean, just never been around that many, you know? Back home, the only dinos are some of the guys who work with Dad. Noah, these are good, honest people. I expect you to be on your best behavior while you're here. Do you understand me? His voice was cold and stern. I watched him adjust a photo he had sticking out of his sun visor. It was a photo of his time in the military. In it, he was standing shoulder over shoulder with another soldier. He was a raptor with an arm in a sling and a stogie in between his teeth. The rest of the men were a motley crew of both dino and human alike sitting over the company tank. I felt a wave of shame wash over me. I know it's just stupid slang, but his disappointment cuts deep. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. His face softened some and he gave me a small nod. He put a hand over my shoulder and looked at me for a moment. You'll like it here, son. Promise. Plenty of kids around your age in the neighborhood, too. Then returned his attention to driving. This concept doesn't really comfort me like Gramps thinks. My experience with other kids in my area was hostile, to put it into words. Being a homeschool kid was one thing, being a homeschool kid with blonde hair and a homemade bowl cut was another. Thank God I eventually learned to cut my own hair. Piss Bowl, they used to call you. A nickname like that gets a feller in a small town do a lot of scraps because that sort of thing what passes for entertainment around here. Well, as the story goes, you get tired of the nickname and teasing, so you set out to do something about it. Get a bit older, wiser, bigger. Pa shows you how to throw a proper punch, and now you're unpopular for different reasons. So, yeah, most of my friends were farm animals, the dog, and whichever one of Dad's employees that gave me the time of day. Only saw the cousins at family gatherings. Hey, Grandpa, how'd you end up in a place like this anyhow? Well, got stationed at a base about a town over. He rubbed his chin as he went down memory lane. People were friendly, grass was greener, and the cost of living was cheap. Once I got out, I figured I'd just stay. He paused for a moment. A smile rose on his face. And when I went to finish college, that's when I met your grandmother. The rest of the ride, he regaled me with his love story. I kind of phased out a lot of the fluff, but I recall they met in some accounting or business course and how they hit it off over their love of some old band. I never really gave love much thought at this point in my life. Just chalked it up to one of those things grown ups worry about. Guess I'm still in that transitioning phase from girls are icky to they look nice and make me feel funny. We pulled into the neighborhood, real picket fence suburb thing going on. A far cry to what I'm used to with wide open fields, but looks cozy enough. Grandma was waiting out on the front porch bench for our arrival. I noticed that a handful of dino kids were trailing Gramps' trucks on their bikes, whooping and hollering to try and get his attention. Grandpa gave him a wave and played the truck's musical horn for them. Kids cheered him on in victory. What's that all about? Just some of the neighborhood regulars hoping for a treat. He reaches into his coat pocket and hands me a piece of grandpa candy. Taffy. Nice. As Grandpa parked the car, the kids swarmed him, ditching their bikes around the driveway and forming a single file line like this is practice. The lineup includes a green gator kid who dresses like he got out of a business meeting. Two woolly mammoths, who I'm assuming are related, are next up. The girl was the largest of the two and clearly older, broad but still effeminate. The smaller boy, I can't tell if he's got some pudge or if it's just layers of fur. Kid looks like a little Chewbacca with tusks. The last in the group I didn't really get a good look at. Their wings covered most of them up, but from what I can tell, they wear a sporty get-up and a ribbon on their crest. I started to make my way out of the truck, eyes still on the dino kids, when my foot got stuck on the step bar. Suddenly, I found myself in a two-way fight with gravity and the pavement. My arms flailed wildly, grasping at air before accepting their fate and resigned themselves to protecting what they could of my face. Poorly, I might add. Brace for impact. Oh shit! My face feels like I got into a slap fight with a frying pan, and my arms burn a little from scraping against the floor. None of which hurt as much as my pride, though. I rolled over like a fat kid after Thanksgiving thirds. We'll call it a tie, Gravity. Whoa, you okay, dude? I squinted, and a giant pigeon? No, a tarot girl came into focus. Her eyes were the first thing I noticed. They were fiery oranges, stark contrast to her otherwise monochrome palette of silver hair and feathered wings. Her hair was shoulder length and choppy. No worse for wear, I croaked. The girl placed a hand out for me to grab. I took it and prepared to push myself off the ground, but to my surprise, the girl managed to hoist me up without much assistance. Despite her small frame, the girl had some muscle on her. I shook off the dust and adjusted my shirt before returning my attention to the girl. Dang, you got an arm on you, girl. She shrugged her shoulders dramatically. I say active with a little this and that. Can't tell if she's being boastful or bashful. I noticed in my peripheral view that a crowd was forming around me and I was at the center of attention. You okay, Noah? The words snapped me to attention. Suddenly I'm conscious of my own eyes. Shit, was I staring at this girl the whole time? Yeah, I'm fine. It's good because I don't think I can hold in my laughter anymore. He belly laughed for a good few seconds. Grandma slapped his shoulder. Frank? Her scolding fell apart as she stifled a laugh. Damn near thought the boy was going to take flight the way his arms was imitating the whirlybirds. Now everyone's laughing. I'm sure my face is turning shades of embarrassed, but hell, I can see the humor in the situation and laugh along. They're laughing with me, I try to tell myself. Well, at least I stuck the landing. It was a weak attempt at humor, but I figured if I leaned into it, I'd stop being the center of attention, or get on with the day. I give it like a solid 6. The tarot girl chirped in. See? With me. Alright, okay. May not be going for gold here. Heart wasn't in it. Well, your face definitely was. The gator boy was proud of that one, threw in some finger guns for good measure. Never mind. At me. The mammoth girl flicked the back of his head. Don't be a jerk, Spike. Ow! Just joking, jeez. Bzz, bzz. The woolly woman whips out her phone and squeals with excitement, jumping around. That's my man's! He wants to see me! Her trunk waved around as she sang the words. Mateo, you still letting that mama's boy string you along? Gator boy jeered, still rubbing the back of his head. He's not stringing me along, we're courting, she said indignantly. Courting? What, like you guys are on an air hug basis now? He wiped a tear from his eyes. I guess I guess things are moving pretty fast, huh? What in Sam Elliott is going on here? The tarot girl pinched her snoot and mumbled something about church guys being weird. Probably shouldn't mention that my parents dragged me along to church every Sunday. Was I a weird church kid? Am I just weird? Like, I think I'm pretty normal, all things considered. If you were weird, would you even know if someone didn't tell you? Weird. You good, dude? She was addressing me. I really need to pay better attention to my surroundings. Yeah, sorry, I was just spacing out for a sec. Yeah, Noah, you're weird, bud. It's all good, dude. Just checking. She returned her attention back to the others. The gator continued to tease the mammoth girl over her boyfriend's chastity vow. He only gives it a rest when she threatens to slug him. Anyways, she side-eyed daggers at the boy. Mateo asked me to join him for youth group tonight. Gator boy stifled a laugh behind a shit-eating grin. This is why you're single. Reason 5 freaking million, the Taro girl said with crossed arms. He blew raspberries at them. Anyways, the angry ancient elephant added much emphasis to the word. I gotta get ready for our date. More snickers. She ignored them and pressed on. So I'll see you all later. Otto, you better head home too. You're ditching us? We were gonna do game night at Spike's. I noticed the Taro girl's wings moved very animated as she talked. The way someone might talk with their hands to accentuate a point. It was kind of adorable. An interesting display, that's for sure. I realize I might be staring again and look at my shoes. We've been playing this for weeks, dude. There was some hurt behind those words. Must have meant a big deal to her, whatever this game night entailed. You're really flaking on us for a guy who won't even hold your hand in public? The baryonyx boy was no longer laughing. Hell, even Grandpa looked disappointed, but held his tongue, I guess. It did seem kind of rude to ditch your friends like that, but I've also never been in a relationship before, or had real friends. I remember during breaks, the married men on the farm would often complain about their significant other, how their social lives pretty much ended when they got hitched. Then I'd think about mom and dad. They were plenty friendly with lots of folks, but I don't think I could say they had any real friends. They only had each other and me, and they at least seemed happier than the other men. Maybe that's the price of love? Guys, please, I want this relationship to work. His faith is important to him, and he's important to me. Plus, if his mother sees me at church with him, it'll make a good impression. The others didn't look very impressed. I'll make it up to you guys. Promise. Whatever. Go. Hope he's worth it. The man that scoops up the taro in a bear hug and swings around. Don't be like that. You guys know you're my number ones. The taro squirms for dear life. Ah, all right, all right. I still love you. Now stop crushing me. I swear I'll say a slur. Eventually, the mammoth relents and plops her back down. Taro takes a moment to catch her breath. Hey, it's not like I had a whole lot planned for tonight's game anyway. This will give me more time to prepare something cool for next time. The gator added, trying to keep the peace with his friend group. Uh, fine. We'll reschedule again. But if you bail on us again, Raleigh, I'm gonna be pissed. Mega pissed, even. Tie my tusk and hope to die. Weird phrasing. She gives this funny salute to the group. Come on, Otto. I'll take you home. The gator tells the mini mammoth. Oh, man, got my new miniature painted for the game. Hell of a lisp on that one. You can tell me all about it when we get you home, little bud. He returned a dejected nod, and the three of them set off on their bikes, leaving the Taro girl and me, who's just been standing there the entire time like a jackass. I give a head nod and try to make my exit, grabbing some of my luggage out of the back of the truck. I expected the girl to be on her way, but that's when she started hitting me with all these questions. Moving in or visiting? I'm just here until I finish school. Volcano High? Think so, yeah. We'll be going to the same school then. Hey, there's that funny feeling I talked about earlier. Oh, cool. A member, by the way. Noah. Noah Buddy. Where you from, Noah? What's with the third degree? Up in the valley where all the farmland and agriculture is. Explains the accent. I have an accent? Yeah, you got a little bit of that twangy draw. Hadn't really noticed it until now. Suppose I do. Do I sound funny or something? She shrugs. I mean, a little bit, yeah. Followed by a little laugh. First day in a new town, and I've already embarrassed myself and been made fun of. Awesome. Great. I groan out. No, like, it's charming, though. Hear that? I'm charming. Nah, more like I'm the exotic funny man that everyone's gonna try to say stupid stuff to get a laugh. Dance, monkey boy, dance. If you say so. Swing a bag over my shoulder and start for the house. I guess she didn't get the hint because she kept following me with more questions. You play video games? Been to the arcade a few times. That count? She shrugs and gives me this gesture with your hands. Yeah, didn't think so. Sports? Well, I'm no jock, but I would watch college ball with my dad. You could definitely pass for one. My parents would say I look corn fed, but take it. Thanks, but nah, just lots of chore and busy work. Grandpa still strolls over, chipper as ever. You kids getting along? Amber and I share a mutual look of slight confusion before we shrug. Sure. Hey, Noah, why don't you let me handle those bags and your grandmother and I will get your room set up and you and Amber go get a soda or something. He reaches in his coat to pull out his wallet, licking his thumbs to count a couple bills he then puts in my hand. Next thing I know, I'm left alone with the dino girl. There's an awkward silence for a moment as we both look at one another dumbfounded at current events. Pocket the money and we both just shrug at the other. Want to go shoot hoops at my place? She offers. Okay. Later. You ever miss? All in the elbows, dude. She says casually, making another clean bucket, then passing me the ball. So what was your old place like? Boring. A whole lot of nothing for miles in every direction. I hit the rim of the basket. What'd you do all day then? She goes chasing after the loose ball. Chores, chores, and you guessed it, more chores. Geez, dude, you do anything for fun? Off the backboard and in the net. Fishing and hunting every once in a blue moon. Had an old guitar I'd strum on. Finally make one in. Oh, you play? Pfft. Consider plucking strings randomly, then sure. Free form. I dig it. She takes another shot. To our surprise and horror, she gets the ball stuck in between the rim and backboard. Well, shit. Amber plops onto her lawn defeated. I pull out the crumpled bills from my pocket. God damn. A lot of dough for getting soda. Sitting on a cool 100 here. I turn to face the tarot with the bills in my fist. Want to hit up the mall? She sits up at attention, looking at the wad of cash, then me, then at the wad of cash again. Later. This the place? Yeah, pull over here. She points out a bike rack. I stop and she begins to lock it up. So, where to first? Ideally somewhere with working AC? That actually gives me an idea. Could use something to cool off. Know a place where we can get some ice cream? She stares off to the side, thinking, if we're lucky, McMeteor's machine won't be broken. You'd sooner get Congress to act. She's thinking again. Well, there's a boba place inside. The hell's boba? She looks at me like I asked her what color the sky is. It's like flavored tea with candy balls and milk. It sounds fruity as hell. Some flavors have a lot of fruit, yeah. No, listen. The only tea I drink is sweet tea with enough sugar to send the Kool-Aid guy into a diabetic coma. You're such a hick, dude. Damn straight, I say with pride. She rolls her eyes at me with a small laugh. Well, there's regular and sweet tea too if the balls in your drink are such a turnoff. Now that's just fishing for a dirty joke. She had a childish grin. What, you don't like slurping up sweet candy balls? Or perhaps you prefer a more salty variety? I'm not gonna dignify that with a response. You just did. Nuh-uh. Yuh-huh. This went on for longer than I'd like to admit. Sometime later, I was double fisting sugar packets into my drink. These people don't know what sweet tea is. Can't believe I paid $20 for this crap. I take a test sip. Better. Want some tea with your sugar? Beats that 7-layer blended BS you call a drink. What do you know? You never even tried it. I'm sure all the ball suckers love it. I take another sip of my tea. Could use a little honey. She shot a wet jelly ball at me with her straw-turned blowgun. I return an unamused gaze at her, flicking it off my shirt. Here, at least try it. She slides a drink across the table. Hard no, plus you got your slobber all over the straw. Amber gives me a glare and swipes my drink from across the table, then proceeds to dramatically put her mouth over the straw to take a sip, letting out an audible, ah, don't be a pussy, dude. She takes another sip. Not bad, by the way. Bit too sweet for my taste, though. I roll my eyes and give the over-designed drink a try. It's good. Really good, in fact. Amber must be able to see it on my face because she's giving me the biggest shit-eating grin. I slide the drink back over to her, arms, crossed my arms. Yeah, it's alright, I guess. Looked pretty orgasmic from here. She sipped her drink in smug satisfaction. You kiss your mother with that snoot? You kiss anyone with that mouth's skin lips? That's supposed to be some kind of human slur? Wouldn't you like to know, monkey boy? I swear to cowboy Christ. Take another sip of my drink. Fuck you, my drink is better. Fuck you, my drink is better. Yeah. This bullshit went on for a while. We finished up our drinks and Amber pitches her empty cup into a nearby trash can, fist pumping the air when it expertly lands. My attempts only scattered the ice cubes and my cups across the floor. I apologize profusely to the janitor that has to clean up after me while Amber is wheezing from laughing her ass off. Once that debacle is over, we continue our mall rat adventure, passing by a dozen odd clothing stores and trying to avoid being assaulted by perfume saleswomen. One managed to corner me and try and peddle some pretentious cologne, and I tried to tell her I wasn't interested, but Amber said she really liked how it smelled. I own a bottle of pretentious cologne now. Amber drags us through some game store, going on various tangents about the wall of used games and whether one was cringe or the GOAT, half of which she hasn't even played. The one game I remember because it actually sounded interesting was Meteor Effect. Exploring space with a ragtag group of humanoid species sounded pretty cool. Apparently, hold on, got a Vice ping. Okay. Anywho, exploring space with a ragtag group of humanoid species sounded pretty cool. Apparently, the ending to it sucked though. An employee kept asking us if we needed help. Amber would reply with, "Just looking, and we don't want the membership card." And I could visibly see a piece of the man's soul chip away each time. She nearly ripped my head off when I almost asked what the membership card was out loud. We didn't buy anything. As we meandered past more stores, I figured I'd make some small talk. So, what's your favorite game then? Without any hesitation. Rock Ring 3. Isn't that game older than you are? She shrugs. When I was a little girl, Dad used to play all his old games with me. Weekends, we would get pizza and just play Rock Ring co-op all day. There was a bitter fondness in her words. You guys don't play anymore? She shakes her head and her shoulders sag. Oh man, her dad's not gone, is he? There's a pause. I open my mouth to say something, but I'm cut off. He's just so busy all the time. He travels a lot with his job, and even when he is home, he's usually working on some project. That definitely sucks, but at least it's not what I thought. Well, a man's got to provide, right? I know that. It'd be nice if he could make more time for me. Oh, Princess misses her daddy. She shoots me the meanest fucking glare, stopping in her tracks. I throw my hands up in surrender. Will I feel like an asshole now? My bad, let me take this foot out of my mouth. She smiles at that, deflating with a sigh, and continues walking. It's fine, don't worry about it. You two must be real close. She nods, then turns her head quizzically towards me. What, not close with your parents? I shake my head. Mom and Dad are fine. We get along, but more like my boss. We were pretty much always busy, but we were busy together, if that makes sense. I think I get it, but you never did anything together for fun? Sure, we did. Vacations and all that, but usually it was just something simple like helping making a pie or going grocery shopping. Little things like that. She nods in approval. Sounds nice, actually. By the way, that normal for you guys to be chasing Grandpa down for candy? She perks up with a beaming smile. Saltwater taffy. Huh? Yeah, your Gramps is always giving out saltwater taffy to neighborhood kids. All the kids know is he's got the best elder candy. Plus, he has a bunch of cool military stories. Still got plenty of money to burn. Might as well. Hey, you want to see if one of the stores has some? There's a sparkle in her eye. She's jumping back and forth and grabs my hand. Butterfly stampede imminent. Heck yeah! Come on, I know the store that sells them. She's practically sprinting, leading me through the stores. I nearly avoid tripping a few times. Amber, hold up! Hurry up, you big ape! I've wrestled cattle with less pull than this girl. Cowboy, Christ, Raptor, Jesus, someone give me strength! We finally made it to the candy store. Amber hasn't even broken a sweat while I'm struggling to catch my breath. She still hasn't let go of my hand. What is she? Oh God, I'm being pulled again. There they are, let's go! In a frenzy, she's scooping taffy into a bag and dragging me to the register, never once letting her death grip on my hand go. I think the cashier made some comment about how cute we were. I cut them off by practically throwing the money on the counter. Just give me the damn candy. Keep the receipt. The cashier glared at me annoyed while handing me the change. Thanks. Amber is fucking vibrating with excitement and making what can only be described as goblin noises as she snatches the bag off the counter. Being dragged off again. Lovely. Thank the powers that be. She's bringing us to a bench. She plants a bag between us and pops a candy in her mouth, kicking her feet rhythmically in delight. Crash on the bench, heaving in as much sweet air as possible. I limply lift the hand that she's glued herself to, looking at her expectantly to finally let go. She doesn't. Instead, she reaches in the bag and drops a piece of taffy in my open mouth. I'm dumbfounded, flabbergasted, absolutely deer in headlights, frozen in confusion. You know what? This is fine. I'm too tired to protest. I close my mouth and take in the sweet flavored goodness. Several moments had passed, candy eaten and not a word said. Amber was humming some song to herself. Scales and feathers, da da da, turn the lights off. It trailed off into nonsense. I can't help but stare. She looks back at me, my way, and gives me a sweet smile. I smile sheepishly back. I don't really know what's going on, but I'm here for it. I glance down at her hands. Oh shit! I jerk my arm away and check my watch, causing a small yelp from Amber. Hey, sun's going down real soon. We should probably get going. She looks disappointed, but nodded and gathered her stuff. Would have been nice to hang out longer, but time waits for no man or dinosaur person. I help her up and we begin our mad dash, power walk out of the mall. Back at the neighborhood, I can make out Grandpa. He's got the fire pit out in the front lawn, and he's chatting up some man built like Mr. Clean. And is that Amber's mom? Gotta be. The closer I get, the more I see the resemblance. They must be looking for her. Pray I didn't just get her into trouble. Grandpa is the first to notice us and waves us over. Noah, there you are, boy. We were just talking about you. He turns to Mr. Clean and Amber's mom. See, I told you they were all right. Amber jumps off the back of her bike and almost knocks over Mr. Clean with a leaping hug. Daddy, you're home! He hugs her back and pats her head. Hey, my precious little dino nugget. That's your dad? And that's chapter 1. Yay!
Good job.
Smash.
Drops a rock on the ground. Very good.
And there you have it, folks.
That's Born to Inherit the Stars with 6 chapters and 20,000 words. Smiles.
Big smash.
Big smiles. All right. What we got next here? We got Cylinder Gap. Another one by Iron Will.
Smash.
He said I had to put in a last minute entry for peak hack fraud maxing. Sorgi. So this one, really quick one shot, less than 1K words. Hope you boys are ready. Here we go. Summary: this is a demo of sorts. Bit of a taste of potentially what's to come with a bigger fic I and Jake parade. Go read French will eventually TM be working on. Spin to win.
Chat, smiles, sorry for the last minute entry, but I couldn't help myself.
Stares across the room. You can't escape your thoughts. You can try to poison them, reason with them, and even give in to them, but you can't run from them. Not all thoughts are bad, of course, but the parasites, they fester and feed on your fears and insecurities. They grow elaborate tunnels to satisfy themselves off loneliness, failure, shame, and guilt. They know you better than you know yourself. The subconscious can be quite subtle in its approach. Abuses, trauma, and neglect can cause swelling over time. The pains are often sharp and sudden. Migraines that took permanent residence, tinnitus of the mind, ringing over and over. I'll try to keep the metaphors to a minimum. Promise. Might as well get this out of the way, actually. I don't think there's really a good way to say, hey, I'm suicidal, nice to meet you. So, yeah. With that out of the way, let me tell you what I've been up to lately. For the last for the last couple months, I've been playing this little game. I do it at the end of the month. It's a simple game, really. Likely heard of it. Russian roulette, right? Take a revolver, put a bullet in, spin the chamber, and pull the trigger. Let me ask you, how does a person leave a suicide note for no one? Dear police or ambulance that finds my corpse? Do you just bitch about your sob story? How no one ever loved you? How you got tired of the day-to-day? Waking up became a chore? How the pills stopped working? Who would it even be for? I reckon I'd just be another footnote in the papers. Another depressed vet adds to the statistics. Funny comics on the other side. Remind me to never get into poetry. Christ, that sucks. I doubt this is what Maven had in mind when she told me I should do more creative writing. I guess she thought it would be therapeutic or to document my progress or something. Didn't exactly retain all the conversation in my inebriated state at the time. Fuck, I still gotta find a way to make it up to her for covering my sorry ass. The point is, or I suppose the part that matters is, I'm trying to make a change. Not for myself, for them. If that change requires me to wax pretentiously for a bit, so be it. Guess you could say I'm the classic definition of a fuck-up. All my problems in life were self-inflicted. From playing with matches that left me with my beauty marks, being a good-for-nothing dropout, to pushing away the only people who ever gave a shit. There was a chance to screw something up there. I was. Ready, willing, and at attention. I just hope for once I can get something right. You hear a lot of horror stories of kids thrown through the ringer when it comes to foster care. I was one of the fortunate ones. Family I was left under the care of had to be some of the kindest damn people. What the hell am I doing? This isn't gonna solve anything. I don't know if I'm capable of helping anyone. I'm at the mercy of emotions of my better friends.
Bing bong.
Yippee!
Get ready for Spin to Win coming out tomorrow.
Yeah. Stares at the revolver longingly.
Yumgers. Okay. And we got one more. A last minute submission from our boy Smoka Cola.
Yay! Smoker!
You want to take this one or
Sure, let me get that loaded real quick.
Okay.
Alright, here we go. May 2nd, 2:01 M 2025 BC. I wake up with a jolt my blanket haphazardly thrown to the side as my eyes shoot open. Almost instinctively, my hands go up to my face and grip the edges of my eyebrows. Same dream. Terry, the phone calling, the yelling. I convulse slightly, holding back the urge to vomit as I feel last night's meal and copious amounts of dromisca. Oh, that's a big word.
Just give it your best try.
Dromicemus curry Cabernet wine attempt to force their way through my stomach. Swallowing forcefully before the taste hits my tongue, I release the stranglehold on my head and breathe deeply for a moment. This isn't the first time this has happened, and it won't be the last. The feeling of waking up and suppressing the urge to vomit has gotten all too familiar at this point. Like every other morning after each of these incidents, I feel the weight settle in, heavy like iron. God, the weight. I shift into bed, moving to my nightstand instinctually to check my phone. On a regular day, it's full of missed calls and voicemails asking where I am at, or how they can bandage the servers until I arrive. Today is different, though. I have the day off. Jen, bless his heart, is covering both of our shifts because I need to exercise my skills alone. And you also deserve a day off. Working as much as we do makes you tired. Good thing I'm not humble, or else I wouldn't be in bed right now. After turning my phone on and shaking away the momentary blindness from my bright ass screen, I see a lack of phone calls or messages, except for one. Jen. She sends me texts every morning. They're usually a mix of work related and personal things. Before it was just work related, but ever since we started dating, the texts have been more and more frequent and the topics have varied wildly. I'm not complaining though. I open my text app and read the message. Jen, heart. Hi, Lynn. I hope you are enjoying your day off. Roxanne was asking about you. She wanted to know if you were sick again. I told her you were fine and I was covering both our shifts. She looked at me kind of funny, but I'm sure she just had to sneeze. Text me when you wake up. Schmage. XOXO. Feel the hint of a smile creep on my face as I finish reading the text. What a fucking goofball. My smile quickly fades, however. Feeling from last night's dream creep back into my mind and quench any positive emotions that might have been surfacing. Lethargically, I sent a response. Hey, I'm awake. A gif of a heart making big goo goo eyes appear on my screen, followed by a text. Morning, how did you sleep? I bite my tongue. Fine, I'm still feeling groggy. Slept good otherwise. And that's good. Figured you were sleeping well. It's already 4 p.m. No shit. I look up the time and sure enough it's 4:15. I wasn't trying to sleep in so late. My bad. Don't sweat it. I'm just happy you got some shut eye. Schmaz. Yeah, I'm all rested up. You leaving soon? Was there a lot going on? Yes, I'll be leaving soon. Today wasn't very busy. I had to I had to maintenance a server and help out a few of the office staff with minor technical bugs. Other than that, nothing else happened. Good job, young one. Soon you will be an IT god. Aw, thank you, Schmaz. Nobody's better than you, though. You taught me all the quick fixes for some of the more minor issues that we run into. You are the god. Right. Taught you how to use Task Manager and how to update Adobe products. Yep, I'm the shit. Don't you forget it, Hardy. Heart, Schmaz. Momentarily, I can feel the aches and pains from my restless sleep and potential hangovers spread across my back and face. It's the same thing day after day after day. My attention shifts back to my phone, not wanting to leave him hanging. I'm gonna get dressed and go relax. Talk to you soon, okay? A minute or so passes until I get a response. Okay, I'll be here if you need me. Lovey. Stellar. I set my phone down on the nightstand and very carefully slipped out of bed. My feet very lightly graze the floor, carpet on scales as I stand up slowly. My head spins momentarily and throbs, the hangover finally hitting me as I stand. Place a hand against my nightstand to stabilize myself, letting the dizziness pass for a moment before I start moving. I really don't want to vomit on the carpet again. I just cleaned up the other night's mess. Sauntering over to the bathroom, the lights flick on with a subtle nudge of a nearby switch. Bright fluorescent white fills my eyes as I wince slightly, hands making their way to a nearby sink counter. The bathroom's decor is simple, basic bathroom amenities spread around at haphazardly across the counter, a mix of my own items and items left over from long ago that I couldn't bring myself to throw away. I keep my head low as I continue to wince, pushing the light pain away before I look up and see the large mirror in front of me. A familiar face greets me, the baryonyx with glowing peach irises and dark turquoise scales, giving my face an almost piercing gaze. Under my eyes are a generous set of bags. I couldn't recall if they were from lack of sleep, stress, or both. I frown lightly, a growing feeling of malaise setting in as I stare at myself. Did I always look this tired, this pathetic? Pushing the thoughts from my head, I continue to look at myself. Unable to stare into my own eyes any longer, I look at the discoloration on my face and snout. Amelism captures the right eye in a seafoam green pool, as well as smaller portions randomly dotted around on my snoot. They've always looked obscene to me, almost like looking at a modern art installation in one more preppy part of town. It just felt wrong. Dad used to call me Little Sycamore. Little Sycamore? Probably as a way to help me feel better about it. Something about the tree and me looking alike. Mom had apparently made up the name. She was always into nature. A calling that I never took to after I'd learned that she had. My stomach churns lightly at the thought, my face unconsciously forming into a heavy frown, my eyes narrowing slightly. I attempt to push away my previous thoughts. Them, plus the hangover, made me want to vomit. I smooth my hair down lightly, marine blue locks parting down the side and flowing into a messy, unkempt bob cut that was very lightly taken care of. Strands of hair popped at random spots, but still followed the general shape of my cut. I let out a deep sigh, my eyes meeting themselves in the mirror. It wasn't always this bad, right? Waking up, feeling the same every day, going to work and then home to just drink and head to bed. Back then, I would get up, say hi to Terry, give him a kiss, and go to work happy as can be. At least, that's what I remember. I probed my head a bit, thinking about it more analytically. A deep, unsettling feeling hit me after thinking about Taryn. Then I remember the looks he would give me, side eyes as I'd walk out the door, the non-reciprocation of my kisses, my affection for him. Was I really making it that bad for him? My gaze starts to melt holes into the mirror, my eyes piercing into my soul. Must not have been reading him right or asking him beforehand. Maybe I wasn't making breakfast the right way or giving him the money he kept asking for. This was every day, though, wasn't it? No, it couldn't have been. Was I really making mistakes every day? It had to have been. The melancholy, malaise, and the hangover mix as the bathroom begins to feel abnormal. I start to hear my breathing more acutely. My hands and body start to slowly feel more and more numb. The focus I previously had on myself begins to wane. My grip on the counter becomes more vigorous. Reflex I've always had to try and ground myself to reality. I did this to myself. Terry was there to support me, make me better. He always told me I was making mistakes, working too much or too little, how I never showed him the same love he showed me. I was the only one working, though, and did everything he asked me to do. Why did I start to feel so anxious then? Why did his presence start to scare me? He would blow up, yell, break things, but he would always apologize, say he loved me, and tell me to just be better for him and it wouldn't happen again. I really was making all those mistakes, wasn't I? They were real. He wasn't lying to me. My breathing picks up heavily, beads of sweat starting to form on my face, and I lean forward, using the counter as support as I start to feel heavier and heavier. Maybe if I didn't fuck everything up, I wouldn't be here alone in this big house. I wouldn't be dealing with this hangover, dealing with this weight and pain that I caused, with a face that shows just how pathetic I've become. I really dropped the ball. A wetness begins to form under my eyes, everything slowly fading away around me. The bathroom begins to feel less and less real as the numb sensation that was growing before threatens to consume me entirely. I look at myself in the mirror and I see a panicked mess, my face distraught as I hear my breathing getting heavier and heavier. The only thing I can focus on now is that face. A voice, my own, cuts through the self contained bubble I have thrown myself into. It's deeper than most women, slightly raspy and straightforward. My tone is mocking, sad, and laced with something else. I know what it is almost immediately. Anguish. You're going to be here, alone, with nobody to help you. You can't get any of that back. It's gone. Failed. Failed me. Failed Terry. You failed Jen. Failed everyone. Jen. That sweet, innocent man. You think he will help you? He is going to see everything you do, every part of you, and leave. Just like Terry. Haven't you learned? He isn't here now. How is he going to? In the onslaught of pain and misery, a distant ping cuts through my fog. My head snaps over to my bedroom. Like a deer in the wild reacting to a sudden noise, I look onto the partial darkness. A small flicker of light shines from the nightstand. My phone must have gone off while I was staring. Silence fills the room now, except for the sound of my heavy breathing. Staring into the bedroom, I blink lightly. Tears, ones that I wasn't planning on shedding, escape my eyes and dot the tops of my cheeks. I bring a hand up and quickly rub away the liquid sadness. Once that's done and over with, my hand lingers on my face and I take in a sharp and shaky breath, sensation slowly returning to my body. Get your shit together, Lynn. Pause, conscious of every breath I take. Slow, ragged, slow, sharp, then finally stable. It doesn't make the aching in my stomach or chest fade, but I'm back in reality, despite not wanting to be. Peeling myself off the sink, I walk back into the bedroom. I take slow, languid steps. I can't really be bothered at this point. Why would it matter anyway? Arriving at my nightstand, I grab my phone and tap the screen. A message from Jen. Hey, I made it home. Just wanted to let you know so we could talk when you see this. Take care. Huh. We've had this kind of text exchange before. Almost every day, as a matter of fact. Right now, though, reading this makes me feel off. My thumb gently rubs along the side of my phone as I continue to stare at the text. After the moment I just had, I'm not sure what to say. As I continue to stand there, gawking, another feeling slowly permeates in my chest. Loneliness. I was right. He really wasn't here to help. Frowning lightly, I can feel my fingers gripping my phone tighter. The reality of him not being here right now makes me want to curl up and drink. Just forget about the whole morning I'm having and fall into the usual comfort of my wine. Yet, oddly enough, it makes my stomach churn. I'm already hungover, already not feeling well. More probably wouldn't help right now. Maybe I could just ask him to come over? Even if it would be a burden on him, I just can't right now. He hasn't said no to anything before, at least if he wasn't busy. Why would he say it now? He could be here. I loosened the grip I had on my phone and opened my texting app. Opening Jen's chat, I very hesitantly type out a message. Hey, glad to hear you're safe. I really need you right. I deleted the message. That sounded desperate, plain like a child looking for their mother. I try again. Hey, glad you're okay. Can you come over and help me? I feel like I'm going to cry. Again, delete the message. Idiot. For a moment, I contemplate setting anything. If I can't send a text to my boyfriend about coming over, what kind of person am I? A sigh escapes my lips and I stare at the phone for a moment before finally setting on something. I'm not going to another night like this, not after what happened already. Hey, happy you're safe. I send the text and wait. Soon enough, I get a reply. Hello, how are you doing? I'm okay, for the most part. You? Tired, but okay. How's the relaxation going? Breath. Just tell him. I'm having a rough time. Got a lot on my mind. Oh, need to talk about it? I don't have any plans. I can text or call. My nerves get the better of me for a second. I don't just tell him these things. I'm not. He's not ready for everything. Not yet. After a brief moment, I move my fingers again. Can you come over? I just need to hang out with someone, I guess. A few moments pass, then a few more. Maybe he really doesn't want to come over. I'm just being too much, like I always have been. Never mind, I'm interrupted by Jen. Absolutely. Have you eaten yet? I'm stuck for a moment, probably more stunned than I should have been at his reply. Something like that shouldn't make me feel so stunned, but it's the first time I've ever really asked him to do this, funnily enough. No, I haven't. Okay, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't snack while I'm driving, okay? I'll see you soon. Heart, be safe. I'll see you soon. I released a long breath when my last message was sent. Despite the mundane nature of the request, every second felt like eating rocks. Taking a quick second to look down at myself, I realize I'm not really wearing anything except a pair of underwear and some small stained tank top. Probably not the best look for a first time invite to hang out. Walk over to my closet, opening the bifold doors as I pursue my clothing selection. A lot of it is the same top I always wear, off the shoulder sweaters and gray and blacks that are just a bit longer than my normal size for comfort more than anything. Even they even though they show off the spots, I think they look alright on me. Under those were the countless amounts of sweatpants in various states of condition, from perfectly spotless to stained red with some nights gone by. I stare at this selection as I start to question my wardrobe choices. There has to be something in here that at least is a bit different from my normal attire. Wearing the same clothes yet again didn't seem very appealing at the moment. A special occasion like this deserves something different, regardless of how stupid it sounds thinking about it. My hands parse through the hanging clothes, looking for anything that slightly stands out. After a few moments, I find something that isn't another sweater. A very large shirt, more than likely from my college days, hangs at the very end of my closet. I pull it off its hanger and give it a light sniff. It smells clean enough for something I probably haven't worn in a long time. Flipping around, I see very large text on the front. Hard to kill, easy to fuck. Wonderful. Cursing my younger self for being the type of person to wear this shirt at all, I take off the depression tank and slide the shirt over my head. Regardless of the text, it's something different. Jen also never really struck me as the type of person to notice or care about what the text was implying. Unless he really was like that. Maybe one day I could. No, not now. Not ever. You can't be like that again. Shutting out my thoughts, I look down at myself again. The shirt comes down just above my knees, covering anything I'd like to be covered. Guess I haven't grown all that much since my college years. Despite how crass it might be, I opt out of any pants. I've got all the sensitive bits covered, and this isn't a business meeting or a fine dining establishment. I'm just in need of company. With my outfit picked out, I'd slowly make my way out of the bedroom. The halls of the house were a bit brighter than the interior of my bedroom. Gray tinted sunbeams lightly entered from the windows in lazy streaks that painted the walls and floors. My headache flares lightly at the change, despite the increase only being marginally noticeable. Frowning and holding my head very lightly, I move over to the closet window in the hallway. It looks out into a nearby street. Cars line the small residential road as a light drizzle of rain coats everything in a wet, comforting blanket. Stepping back from the window, I continue to make my way through the halls, heading towards the staircase that leads down into the living room. The house was a two-story meant for a small family. At least that's what we were told when we had originally looked at the place. Upstairs, there were two bedrooms, my own bedroom and his room. I stopped momentarily as I passed by the door, staring at the doorknob. Could never bring myself to go in there, despite needing to. None of his things were ever moved from there. Everything kept in its same place since the day he left. Time capsule sorts of better times. Thinking about this made my gut churn again. The thoughts from when I was looking at myself in the mirror slowly starting to come back into my consciousness as I kept staring at that door. If I hadn't made the mistakes I did and just treated him more like he wanted, been more like he wanted, this wouldn't be happening right now. I'd probably be staring at him in that room, smiling like I used to when we were together like that, despite those times being so few and far between. My chest tightens noticeably, a sign that I should probably move on before another incident like the bathroom. I take one more glance at the door before making my way to the end of the hallway and down a set of stairs. I met with my living room and the entryway to my kitchen. The living room itself was simple: a few chairs, a medium-sized coffee table, flat-screen TV, and a sizable couch, all costing more than I liked. On the couch was a tangle of blankets and pillows, haphazardly thrown about from what I could only assume was a night of drinking. My suspicions were confirmed when I looked at the coffee table, wine bottles placed in random spots on the table's face and on the floor. The sight was embarrassing, to say the least, making me feel more pathetic than I already was. Turning away from the mess, I looked at the kitchen, which was arguably not any better than the living room. I had never really cooked, at least I didn't anymore. Despite that, there was still a pile of dishes in the sink, collecting dust as they sat in messy stacks in both basins. I don't even remember using that many dishes. Usually, I just made microwave meals and other small, easy to make dinners. The kitchen itself was somewhat clean, a sizable area of mostly hardwood and tiles, meant for 2 to 3 people to be in at one time. Haven't swept the floors in a while or wiped off the counters, so there was more than likely a good amount of built up grime and residue from the constant inaction. This was a bad look for sure. Jen was more than likely going to come over, look at everything in my house, and peg me for what I really was. Just some lazy ass drunk who can't take of herself or her home. His perception of me was built on how I am at work and when we would go out and have our little dinners and walks. Your house is a representation of who you are as a person, right? I read that on an online forum at one point. The real me is going to show, and he's going to absolutely ding dong. There's Jen. I pivot and look at the front door, not expecting him to be here so soon. Did 10 minutes already pass? Standing there like a bimbo, I blink a few times to regain a sense of where I'm at. I can't just leave him out there, but this place is a mess. Unconsciously, I groan into my cheeks as I look around. Maybe I can just throw everything in the closets and cabinets to make it look nice? Or maybe, ding dong. Shit. I can't just leave him out there, can I? That's an even worse first house hangout impression than the place being messy, right? Slowly, I make my way to the front door, reaching out and gripping the doorknob. I take a deep breath and attempt to smile. It doesn't work. Here we go. I open the door, being greeted by my lovely other half. To be continued. Probably later tonight, Law. And we have a very cute little Jen and Lynn.
The image.
The cuteness!
The image.
And there you
Alright.
have it, folks.
Alright. Fucking there we go. That is all of the demos from the week 14/15 of the weekly bounties. We did 4 weeks worth of bounties in like 2 streams. Yippee! Hopefully, you guys had a good time. If any of these fics piqued your interest, by all means, go check out the works themselves. Go give the writers the love that they deserve, and cheer for them to do more.
Yeah.
From the streaming perspective, I won't be live again until next week, like same time. I'm going on a trip, man. I ain't gonna be here. My ass is gone.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, 1 week out, should be back. We'll be trying to get back into the swing of like reading other fics as well, on top of everything. So yeah, you ought to be able to look forward to that. In terms of what we're gonna read next, I'll probably get a bunch of recommendations, throw them into a poll, and that'll determine what we're doing. So, anybody who's still in chat, there's one more thing that you may have as a little treat. Now,
Oh boy.
a couple people already know about this. Let me refresh the page because obviously it's not fucking working for me. Don't worry. This one's really cool.
Raise his eyebrow.
Incomplete transfer. I would like to resume it. How much more is it going to resume? Oh my god, it's still frozen.
Oh no.
Wait, it's going so fast. Is it
Whoa.
gonna and it's slowing down, and it's going fast, and it's slowing down. Hold up. You know what? You guys just sit there for like a minute or two. I'm gonna put the skeleton on stream.
It'll buff.
It'll buff. It'll buff. Don't worry.
Chat, letting to download your strength.
I tried to start this like before the stream, but then it like froze at the last bit and then just didn't finish, and it's been there since the fucking beginning of stream. It was very
No.
angry. I promise you to be so freaking cool. Mega upload is edging us while we watch Humo's piss skeleton.
Whoa.
This is what comes out of your Pibnor when you have kidney stones. The yellow skeleton.
This is one of the creatures that fucking piss orb Jake can conjure.
I wish that Jake was like an elite pisnomancer. He's unfortunately not cool enough, though.
Looks over at that one piece that Kev drew for him.
This is the longest 5 seconds estimated download time I've ever seen, by the way. Oh, it's because it's rapidly tanking on speed. We're up to 25 seconds now. This last
Wait.
0.01 gig is like, it's where all the power resides, apparently.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Is it one of those situations where it then has to, like, verify the files, which is, like, another, like...
I don't know. It literally is, like, at the last fucking hair.
Oh, man. Well, it's podcast time, guys.
Bastard. Work! I cracked the whip.
Whip out.
We're at kilobytes per second right now in terms of download speed, just in case you were curious.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah,
are
it's
there any,
rough
like,
out here.
hot tab processes? You don't have, like, anything else downloading?
No, this is just Mega being sludge.
God, no.
Cause, oh, what the oh no. I see, like, 4 people playing fucking Gmod right now.
Oh. I think, Wax and crew were, gonna do a little thing.
Ah, I see. I think they're playing the hidden right now. Interesting. Wait,
Darn.
it says completed!
Let's go, boys!
Where is it? Wait. Pause, champ. Pause. Hold up. I am tired of being edged. Please, for the love of God, just finish so that I can... Wait! Wait! You say 0 seconds left! Finish now!
So anyways,
fucking long drive, more like long download. God damn.
To everyone who submitted, thank you greatly. You all cooked immensely.
Don't ever ask me for anything ever again.
We had some really great first chapters. And I am excited to be watching all your careers with great interest.
All right. Here's the treat for you all. Display capture up.
Oh!
Oops. Did you just rip the fucking trunk off? Hell yeah. Anything else we need, or are we good to go? Okay. Whoa! Oh shit!
What have you done?
It's just kind of wet.
Oh fucking hell! I don't think they got no. That's a wrap.
I hear a bell. So this is courtesy of Dragon Core. He edited a video together for us.
Make sure we all give him a big round of applause, chat.
This will be going on the channel. Hopefully tonight, as long as the upload doesn't take too long. And this will be, if not tonight, I'm gonna try to get it like first thing next week. But I'm gonna start the upload after stream tonight. So you guys are gonna have a video edited here. And if this is something that people like, I'll see about having Dragon edit another one at some point if he's down. I might also reach out to Scrag, because I know in the past he's talked about being willing to help edit as well. So this is going to be the litmus test. Hopefully,
I can already tell this is going to be a good one.
Hopefully it goes well. But yeah, with that, anybody who's in chat, be you lurking or otherwise, hope you have a good rest of your day, night, evening. Whatever time it is for you. I'll see you in a week.
Get out of here!